the unknown, down the rabbit hole, where it stops no one knows. We're going head into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. Ooh, it's so nice to have the weekend, not have to get up at like the butt crack of dawn and take kids to school and do all the things. But, you know, the weekend brings housework and all that crap, though, too. So I'm going to come hang out with you guys instead. So thank you guys for being here. Welcome back to Criminality. If this is your first time here, welcome to Criminality. So let me say hi to everybody in chat, and we're going to get started. I put together some graphics. I guess they're graphic. I don't know if they're graphics. I mean, I guess they're graphics, whatever. Some things to show you guys about the timeline on the Karen Reed case. And after my 8.5-hour Karen Reed introduction live stream, so long, people were like, okay, somebody break it down a little bit. One, other people like watched the whole thing and they were like sucked in. I was sucked in. That's how I ended up on here for 8.5 hours. I think it's the longest live stream I've ever done, personally. And other people were like, who's this? Actually, the comment that got me, which is why I put it on the thumbnail, was, what is a turtle boy? So we're going to discuss that just a little bit, not a ton, but we'll discuss it a little bit. So thank you guys for being here. Let me say hi to you guys in chat, and then we'll get started. And we do have opening statements. The jury has been selected in the Karen Reed case. They have 19 jurors currently seated, and opening statements are scheduled to start Monday. There are a lot of channels that are streaming the trial. If you're interested in watching it, I will be one of the watchers. I will not be streaming the trial. So just an FYI. I don't typically stream trials because my schedule is kind of wonky with the kids, and I always feel like if I can't be here and just giving you guys like the full on attention, I shouldn't do it. And if I can't do it every day, I just feel like it's a commitment, and I just don't know if I can commit that much time. So I'm a viewer, so that way I can watch it on the phone and take it with me to pick up kids, drop off kids, and do all the things. Hearings are a little different. I typically can kind of schedule around those, but the full trial, and this one is scheduled, well, technically it was scheduled for 8 weeks with jury selection. So now we're looking at, 7 weeks with testimony. And I mean, that's a pretty big one. It's probably going to go over and be at the same time as the Delphi trial, which we won't get to see as of right now because Judge Gull's being very goalish. So hi Jaded, hi Susan. I'll be watching with the Fence Diaries with their dual stream with Jay. So I know Melanie Little is an attorney and she's streaming it. Bob and Jay are streaming it as well. Somebody recently, after I did that 8-hour live, told me to watch 13th juror. I think that's her name. Brandy, and she has a podcast, and I think she's streaming the trial. I mean, you guys have plenty of places that you will be able to watch it. It's just, I mean, it's going to be on Court TV anyway. If you just want to watch it without any commentary, then I hope this case doesn't traumatize me too. Oh, you're in Boston. Oh, I hung out for 3.5-4 hours, watched the rest the next day. Would never have made it. I know, I was surprised I made it, but it is what it is. Hi, Renee. Hi, Chris. What's up, Dina? Hi, CH. We will have Walmart Super Goosies. Vertinoga. Marshall. Hi, Journey takes a trip heading to bed. It's late there, huh? Oh yeah, like 11 you said. Hi, Dean. What's up, Carla? We've gobshite. Shite. So shit. So shit. ATS, I love. Hi, Tony. Black Swan. Shaz. What's up, Travis? My King of Kings. 11:30. You're heading to bed, and somebody else is just waking up. That's like crazy. You guys are like in the future. You guys like live in the future. Spicy. Hi, Wild Man's mom. Oh, I'm early. I'll be back. Okay, hopefully you made it back. What's up, Nancy? Hi, Johnny. Boston JD, what's up? Okay, so at the it's not pinned. So the link tree is actually pinned, but there is, and I'll try to drop it throughout when we're talking about it. But I did just put together a little Prezi. If anybody follows my Delphi stuff, I have a very, very big Prezi for that case. But I did put together a little miniature one for the Karen Reed case just to make it easier. Plus, that way it gives you guys access to it, which is, you know, I like whatever I have, I want you guys to be able to have and use and see and whatever. So the link is up at the top of the chat. And Allie and Shannon will be giving the high points of Daybell at night while the guys stream Reed during the day. So I'll still watch. I'll end up watching both. I watch the Daybell trial too. I was going to go and cover it, but honestly, it's hard because it's such a replay of what we went through with Lori. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. So I'm listening to it and hoping that something different comes out, but it is what it is. Hi, Aries. Had surgery. Oh, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're healing well. Sticking with listening to Pryor. I actually think Pryor's doing a very good job, and I don't like Pryor. I think he's doing, you got to think, even if we don't like the guy, like he's doing that entire trial by himself, alone. He's the only attorney that Chad has. He's doing everything by himself. Like that is an immense responsibility. And so I don't think he's actually doing that bad. The problem is he's Pryor. So he's just kind of, I don't think he rubs people very well. What's my opinion on whether she's guilty or not? Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I don't know. I am on the fence. I always followed the Karen Reed case, but I never dug super, super deep into it. I don't know all the inner workings of everything. I just don't. But I mean, I have followed it pretty close. It's just his injuries don't make sense to me is the biggest thing I have. And then somewhat similar to Delphi, when there's so much shadiness on the other side, it makes you go, why? Why do you have to do things so wrong to make it so that this fits and makes her guilty? If she's guilty, she's guilty. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So it always kind of makes you question, like, is she really guilty then? Because if she was, you wouldn't be doing all this weird shit to try to make sure that she's guilty. And that's like where I fall with like Richard Allen. So I don't know. I am, I'm going to watch the trial for sure. So hi, Shelly Bean. I know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Do you guys think that she's guilty? There's the weird, I mean, we can't ignore the fact that we have Jennifer McCabe, who has this weird ass search that seems to be a huge point of contention, which we're going to talk about that too. Two things will help me decide. Was the Google search at 2:27, and why does it look like her taillight is still there at 5 a.m. when they say she hit him? Yeah, I think cops cover for cops, and I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, John. What would she have to, well, see, I think that's the other issue too, is that there's a element that they're trying to present of like a premeditation, that they had this tumultuous relationship and they fought all the time, and you know, he wanted to break up with her, but she didn't want to break up with him. And I mean, and premeditation can happen within, you know, it just takes a minute. It's just like, okay, let me, do this. And then that's premeditation. It doesn't take like all this planning in the whole world. But I mean, she was drunk. I mean, I don't think there's any question on the fact whether she was intoxicated or not. She was absolutely intoxicated. So would that have even been the thing? But my thought is if she did hit him on purpose and it was intentional, then why is she messaging him and yelling at him all night for being a jerk and not letting her know what was going on? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to see, but like I said, for me, I think right now, the injuries don't make sense to me. Somebody's going to have to sit down and explain but can they prove she was drunk? Well, we have they're trying to get out the toxicology, not toxicology, so stupid. The blood test, her blood levels from the morning, they're trying to get those out. So can they prove it? I mean, they have her on video with a lot of drinks. Can they prove that she drank them all? I don't know. I've not seen the videos yet. Oh, hey, thank you for joining, Renee. I appreciate that. Welcome. Hey, Debbie. Dragonfly, they give crime scene investigation in a whole new sloppy protocol, right? I mean, they're collecting like blood samples in the snow and putting them in red Solo cups. Like, it just doesn't. There's just so many things that don't make sense. Hey, Robin, there's too many shenanigans afoot. Too many shenanigans. Yeah, she's calling him, leaving these voicemails saying that he's a jerk and, fuck you. And if she thought she killed him, then why would she be doing that? All right, she didn't do it. Even the Fed said the car didn't hit Officer O'Keefe. And this is like a huge point too, is like you have an actual investigation happening into the law enforcement agents that were part of this and that are saying that she's the culprit and then lying about their relationship with the people involved. It's tough. If she did hit him, which I think is unlikely, she didn't know it. That's kind of where I'm at. But then when I go there, I'm like, the injuries just don't make any sense to me. The injuries to him in comparison to the damage to the car. But then do I think like it's just, it would be an absolute conspiracy that these people, the Alberts and the McCabe's and these officers are purposely doing this as a cover up. This isn't like Delphi where it's like, oh, let's get a patsy. This is an absolute frame job, which is, that's like the shit like movies are made of. So it's like, how far down do you want to think that that's real? You know what I mean? And I think there's people who are not going to want to think that could happen. So they're just going to go, she did it. That's it. Do we know if Law and Crime is Karen Trail? I don't know what that means. If they're airing the Karen, Law and Crime should have it on too. Law and Crime, Court TV. You should be able to watch it. Like I said, there's going to be tons of people that are streaming it. So you'll have ones that stream it with commentary. You're going to have ones that stream it with legal commentary. And then you're going to have places that are just going to stream the trial with no commentary. And so it's really just going to be like kind of what your choice on where and what you want to watch. The rehoming of the dog, the tearing up of the concrete floor in the basement, and the selling of the house. Right. Hey, Scott. Because it's so strange. It is. It's so strange. How did he have a drink in his hand if he hadn't been in the party already? Oh, he took it from the bar. Okay, let me pull this up and we'll start kind of going through what we have here. How many times have I left those kind of messages? I'm not 62 and single for nothing. I've left those kinds of messages for sure. And I could tell you right now, if I was sitting out there waiting for him to message me and let me know he's staying, that I should come in, that we're actually invited, just to communicate with me, and he doesn't respond, and I'm just sitting there, and then I end up driving back to his house, calling him, and he's just ignoring me, like, I'm going to get madder and madder. So that to me doesn't bode for that. It actually is more exculpatory than inculpatory to me. Let me share my screen with you guys. So, and then I put together a couple, like a little playlist, so we can go through and watch some videos of certain things. So, like I said, this is nothing fancy. This is nowhere near anything like the Delphi one, so don't expect it to be. But this is just the case against Karen Reed, and then I just have, I showed this on the 8-hour stream, but I have updated it. So I just wanted to give you guys just a general, again, of the who's who and the what's what. This is public, and it does have a link. So you guys are welcome to access this yourself, see it, and, you know, whatever you need to do with it. Or you just want it for your own information to look back on to see like the who's who and the what's what. So obviously the main people are John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. John O'Keefe is the, hi Nancy, John O'Keefe is the victim. Karen Reed is the one that's on trial for backing into him, essentially. And then it's just got all the players. This tells you like who was in the house. So if it has a little house, it's got like that was who was in the house. The Alberts are the people who own the home, and Nicole Albert's sister is Jen McCabe. She is, you know, like one of the main players on the defense theory. Her husband, and then it was Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday party at the house. So he had a couple of friends over, then, and one of the friends' brothers ends up playing a big role. So that's there. Hi, Stephen. So and then you got Lucky, the snowplow driver, who also is a big one when it comes to the defense theory. So it's just kind of, it'll give you all of that stuff. And then over here, I put in a couple of them I couldn't find pictures for. So they're blank, but it is what it is. So like, here's your prosecution team. Here's your judge. Here's your defense attorneys. Here's the cops that they would believe is, according to defense theory, would be involved in the cover-up of what happened to John O'Keefe. And then here's some additional players on the outside. Here's your medical examiner, the EMT, who says that she heard Karen say that she, you know, that she had hit John O'Keefe. And, you know, Karen's response is, well, you know, there's a did I, and then there's a question mark at the end. Like, did I hit him? It's right here. You don't have to hit anything in Linktree. It's right here. It's a separate link. The link to this is also in the description of the video. So if you're watching on replay and can't find it, it is in the description of the video. So you got, like I said, it's not super deep. Obviously, we're starting trial. Can you add me on there as an unknown artist? I can, actually. But we're starting trial Monday with opening statements. So then I'm not going to go too far into this because, like I said, it's just kind of just for anybody who needs to know like the who's who and the what's what and who was in the house, who was alleged to be in the house, and who the players are. So there's that one. Like I said, I did go over this on the 8-hour stream, but I just wanted to show you that it is updated, and you know, you can get a visual of who is who. Hi, Hybrid. Either way, I don't think it was intentional. If he was beat up in the house, maybe things just got out of hand. Don't know. They planned on killing him and potentially KR2 if she came in. Yeah, Monday. We get to start to say everything's going to, and I think that it's going to be, for anybody who just likes to watch trials, this is going to be a very good trial to watch. It's not going, I do not believe this one is going to be very boring. Like Chad Daybell's trial right now, it's very monotonous, and because we've listened to most of this evidence before, which is why, you know, in Daybell's case, they wanted to try Lori and Chad together. But this one, I think, is going to be, there's some contention between the attorneys. There's all the things that you have very good attorneys, very good defense attorneys. So like all the ingredients that you need to have a very good trial are involved in this case. Not to mention, you have a victim, John O'Keefe, who is extremely likable. I mean, very good guy. He, his sister passed away, and then his brother-in-law passed away, and so he ended up taking in his niece and nephew. Everybody who knew him, talks about what a good guy he was, and so you have this very likable victim, and then you have Karen Reed, who either people love her or hate her, and it's like there's not a lot of in between, I see. So, hi, Susie, chronic lurker, popping in to say hi. Well, you're welcome to pop in anytime you want to, or lurk, either way. I think there's enough reasonable doubt for a not guilty verdict. Hey, grateful middle-aged cat mama. Unsafe bot, there's a rumor about a call on the plow radio earlier in the morning, but I've never heard anything about what you're saying. Oh, I don't know. Where's your new art? Hi, Sleuthy. I saw she posted it on Twitter. Hey, hello, Spring. You're not too late. You're fine. We were just chatting. My prediction is the woman on defense will cross Jen McCabe. If she doesn't, it'll be Jackson with his soft but firm voice, but I think that they will use the woman. So to talk just a little bit about like the attorneys too, the district attorney is Michael Morrissey, which is Sleuthy. That's like Sleuthy's favorite person in the whole world, I think. Not going to miss this. I'm pumped to see Jackson and Yannetti in their trial mode. Yes. But Alan Jackson, I'm actually familiar with Alan Jackson because he's from California, and he was the prosecutor. So he is flipped to the defense side, but he was the prosecutor who prosecuted Phil Spector. So if you guys know anything about that, he's a very good attorney. He's no joke. He's a very good attorney, and so is David Yannetti. I just wasn't very familiar with him before this case. Karen backed up into John in a drunken rage. Oh, you think so? Interesting. So you think that like they were fighting in the car, and then he gets out, and then she backs up. Like, what I think they say is 24 miles an hour that she would have had to have been going when she hit him. So the only thing I will ask then, when you're fine, like I said, I don't care what your opinions are on people. Just as long as everybody's nice and chat, you guys all know my rules. Like, I don't care what anybody's opinion is on a case. But I will ask you this, Patricia. If that's true, how did Ryan Nagel pull up to the driveway to pick up his sister? Well, he's in the passenger seat, but how did he and his friend pull up to the driveway to pick up his sister? And when he goes to leave, he sees her still sitting in the car by herself, and doesn't like. When does that transpire then? Because that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like, how does that work? Like, if she's pulled up and then he comes in behind her, when does Karen Reed back up into him? She'd have to pull further and then back up while Ryan Nagel is sitting in the passenger seat of the truck behind her. And I don't know how that, or he would have had to have been sitting there when she did it. So I don't know. And like I said, anyone ever try to reverse at 24 miles an hour on a snowy street? Go try it on dry pavement. Has anyone heard about the gifts for commercial license around there? No, I don't know what that is. I think she might have thrown the cocktail glass out the window at him, and that's why she said she hit him when she was asked if she knew what happened to his nose and eye. Interesting theory. When did she do it? There was someone behind her. Yeah, Jen McCabe's first statement was that she saw Karen drive away. So when exactly did she do it? Been to Alan Jackson in concert twice. I'm still leaning. The original plan was to blame the plow driver, but they had to pivot when the street wasn't plowed and KR's taillight was cracked. Well, I think they had to, if that's true, if that's the theory, then this is where I go with that. Well, we know the street was plowed. It was plowed by Lucky, so we know it was plowed, and it might have been. Maybe it was to blame the plow driver, but he's pretty far off of the street That's another thing that's kind of weird to me. He's pretty far off of the street. Like how, I'd have to look up exactly how many feet from the street he was, but the plow driver would not have been able to get to him over there. And the plow driver doesn't come until later. So he would have had to have been out there way later. Hi, Princess Megan Elsa. Yannetti was a prosecutor too. Yes, thank you, Sleuthy. I didn't mention that. Thank you. No way she could have done it. 24 miles per hour in reverse. Feels like you're taking off in a rocket ship. 12 feet. Thank you. Thank you, Susie. It's a very crazy case. She could have slapped him before he got out of the car, and in that awful state of realizing he might be dead, started saying, I hit him, I hit him. They were both drunk. Ninja, you must pick a side. You have to pick a side. I don't know. I think like over the last like 6 months, I've literally just become like the channel that just sits on a fence. Like, I don't even know how that happened. I'm normally much more adamant about how I feel about cases. But like these two, I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, I did it. I did it. Yes, I did it. It was a while back. They were taking huge gifts for favors. Oh. There have been so many things that come to light. What is happening in that place? I know. Where did we learn the basement floor was dug up? I missed that. It wasn't dug up. It was replaced. I mean, so I guess it could have been, I don't know if they had to dig it to do it, but they did. When they sold the house, it had new flooring in the basement. There's just so much fuckery. Hey, Dan. What's up? Taillight is too strong to brake on a human, low speeds. Yeah, so let's go. Let's get into some of the other things then, and let's get into the timeline. So I tried to pull just as much as I could from the timeline that had the most factual basis behind it, instead of like everybody's statements, because everybody was intoxicated, so it's really hard to kind of go off everybody's statements. But so I tried to do the best I could from the data that we have. So just to give like the critical timeline of the evening. I'm completely ignorant on this case and must do a deep dive. Well, I did an 8.5-hour one, so you're absolutely welcome to go watch that. Where we're kind of going over just some of the key things right now. Anyway, but it is a deep dive is a must on this case. Give me 1 second. Okay, so Sleuthy's making a sheet of all Jen McCabe's data. Oh goodness. Oh well, welcome, Spicy. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. So I guess I gave you guys the major players, and we'll go through the timeline. We can touch a little bit on the state's theory and the defense theory. I just don't want to make this another 8.5-hour stream. I was trying to make it shorter and more concise than the last one for people who are like just see 8 hours and they're like, oh hell no, I'm not doing it. Even though it was jam-packed full of massive information. So at 8:45, Julie Albert texts John. So Julie Albert is the sister-in-law to the homeowners. And so she texts John O'Keefe, the victim, to tell him to come to the Waterfall Bar. Karen and John being the victim, Karen being the one on trial, they leave CF McCarthy's, which is just down the street, and they head over to the waterfall. So they just have to walk over there. And Karen is seen on camera leaving that place with a drink in hand. So at 10:54, Karen and John arrive at the Waterfall Bar. And then at 12:10, Karen and John leave the Waterfall Bar. So they're there. You can see they go and they get the videos. Those are all out there too. And you can see them, drinking and just, having a normal evening. So at 12:10 a.m., Karen and John leave. It's actually 12:10 and 12:11 because she walks out with two people and he walks out right after her. And now John is seen leaving this bar, Waterfall, with a drink in hand. At 12:13, Jennifer and Matt McCabe leave the Waterfall bar. So remember, Jennifer is the homeowner's, the female homeowner's sister. So they leave the Waterfall bar. John texts Jennifer and says, like, where to? Like, you know, what's next? And then Jennifer calls John in return. At 12:18, Jennifer arrives at 34 Fairview. This is where everything happens. No matter which theory you go with, everything happens here. So this address is like the big one. At 12:19, John's phone starts to ping in the neighborhood. At 12:21 to 12:24, because the way that the data comes out, it says that John took 80 steps, which is 288 feet. So between 12:21 and 12:24. At 12:24, Karen and John arrive at 34 Fairview. And at 12:24, Ryan Nagel, with his friend, pull up to pick up his sister. His sister decides to stay there. So they pull up right behind Karen and John. That's why his testimony will become a very, very big deal. I don't get why people are willing to believe that a bunch of cops murdered a fellow cop above his drunk girlfriend angrily backing into him. I'm not willing to believe one over the other currently yet. I just, like, for me personally, Patricia, like, honestly, for me, I don't understand how his injuries match the damage to the car. That's where I'm at with that part of it. It just, I can't wrap my, I need somebody who is way more experienced than obviously me to break down and explain. I don't get it. It makes no sense. You did a good 8 hours. Some have 60 hours of content to explain what you did in 8. You're my hero. I tried. So like I said, this is just a shorter version. I believe he drove them there and she did not want to stay. So when she moves across the car to drive, hit the reverse and ran him over. That's interesting. Because cops are corrupt and their actions since then point to it. There's a lot of really weird things. That's true, Scotty. There's a lot of really weird things and statements that the officers have made that don't even align with what they actually did. So if they didn't do anything wrong, why are they making up shit? So that's a tough one too. This is why I'm like, I'm not sold any which way. She drove from the bar. I'm pretty sure they have her on camera driving. They have her on a couple different cameras seen leaving, and she drove. Okay, so now we have Ryan Nagel, who pulls up with his friend to pick up his sister, who decides to stay. So at 12, so remember, you have 80 steps here from 12:21 to 12:24. So he's taking steps. When Karen pulls in, she pulls up to the front of the house, like right at the driveway, which is right here. And I'll show you, I can show you guys a better picture, but the end of the driveway, she pulls right here. And then she realizes this truck that's right behind her is actually going to the same place she is. So she pulls forward in order for that person to be able to pull behind her. And that person is Ryan Nagel, which is why I said he's going to be a very important witness to the defense, because he has straight on sight of everything that's happening with Karen and Karen's car and John getting in or out and not seeing him at all. So then at 12:27, Jennifer texts John, like, here? Like, where are you? Are you here? And then at 12:29, she calls John, and the call lasts for 8 seconds, which means the call is answered. The call is picked up. Now, the opposition says the call is only picked up because it went to voicemail. Oh, yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Pritchard, you could absolutely be right, but there are a few things that have to be explained first, especially the Google search. Yeah, that's true. And it's still weird if John was a friend of Albert's too. They didn't come out of the house. Right. Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Hi, Salty C. Right, but that's why I said that they're trying to fight that. No, that was actually just picked up because it went to voicemail. But this call at 12:29 is picked up, lasts for 8 seconds. So then at 12:31, Jennifer McCabe texts John, just like pull behind me. And then at 12:40, she texts John again and says, hello. At 12:41, Karen arrives back at John O'Keefe's house. So she is now left and goes back to John's house. At 12:41, Jennifer's calling John with no answer. They know she's at the house, even though another weird situation is that the ring footage of her arriving back at John's house is missing and has been deleted, gone. They know she's there because on the voicemail, you can hear the garage door and you can hear her heels clicking on the garage floor. Then at 12:42, why did I say Jen? This is not that one. This is not that one. I apologize. See, look at me. Let me back up. Let me just back up a second and fix what I just said, because that's not the right one. Did I put that in there wrong? Did I put this in here wrong? Because I feel like I put this in here wrong. Like maybe I put the wrong name. Did I type the wrong name? Shit. Give me a second. This should be Karen's call. Sleuthy, you were supposed to fact check me. Hold on. I'm going back because I feel like I put Jennifer in here and it's supposed to be Karen. Yes, I did. I'm going to fix that. I'll fix that and fix the Prezi. Because this 12:41, I said the right story, but I obviously typed the wrong name when I made this. So this right here, this 12:41 is supposed to be Jennifer, not Jennifer. God damn it. Karen calling John. So typo here. Puts on cape and hurries to help T. Well, I sent him to her, to fact check me. And she's like, looks good. Dang it, I messed up. So 12:41 is Karen calling John. Jennifer did call him at the same time. Do I just need another thing here then? Hold on, let me go to your time. Let me go to your timeline. Maybe I have them both on here. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to breathe for a second and then I know what I did. Check what I just sent. Wait, no, I have both. Karen arrives at John's house and leaves John a voicemail. This is the one I'm talking about. This one right here is where you hear her heels on the ground and the garage door. Now, 12:41, there is also 2 calls that are not answered from Jennifer McCabe. So all is well. My fact checker is just not on point today, apparently. So, yes. Thank you, Sleuthy. Yes, they're both there, and I did do them correctly. I did get it. I thought I had it wrong, but I didn't. It's that one time when you thought you were wrong, but you were wrong. So anyway, yes, she calls, clickety clack. Here's that, and then I should put some little feet on here. Jennifer calls John. No answer 2 times. 12:42. Jennifer texts John, "Where are you?" At 12:46, 12:47, and 12:50, Jennifer calls John 3 more times. At 1:30, Brian Higgins, who's the ATF agent, leaves the house at 34 Fairview and says that he goes to the Canton Police Department to work on some paperwork. Very interesting timing to go work on some paperwork. 1:47, Jennifer and Matt leave 34 Fairview and take Julie, which is Ryan's sister, who he was there to pick up earlier. Hi, Mal. That he was there to pick up earlier, and another girl, Sarah, who was at the party, and takes them home before going home themselves. At 2:12, Jennifer and Matt arrive home. At 2:22, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert talk on the phone. I should put a but here because now they're trying to say that these are all just butt dials. They're calling each other and answering the phone, but they're saying there's just a bunch of butt dials happening. At 2:25, Jennifer sends 2 text messages. We don't know to whom yet. And at 2:27, Jennifer Googles misspelled how long to die in cold. Now, I put this down here as true or false because this is a huge point of contention on whether this is accurate or not. And this is going to come down to phone experts testifying on both sides. One saying, no, absolutely, it did happen. There's no way around it. You can't just go back and say that this was some other type of search and she didn't really search this. Hey, Ramblin'. Hi, War Eagle. But if they're protecting one teenager who may participate, maybe a family member, wouldn't they help conceal? I don't know. This is the whole thing. This is where the back and forth comes in. Nobody saw a body. Everybody left the party and nobody saw John out there. Nobody saw John out there. Nobody saw John's body. Hi, Schmeed. So the prosecution essentially says that she had already done this other search and that she uses this same search to then search later on in the morning, which we're going to get to that in the timeline. But the defense experts are saying, no, not possible. Couldn't have done that. This search absolutely happens at 2:27. Hi. Oh, Deet sent you? Aw, love me some Deetses. Okay. So this huge piece that is it's gonna kind of be, I think, a huge point of contention in trial. That this is going to be a big testimony on both sides to prove or disprove that this search actually happened. If Jennifer McCabe at 2:27 in the morning is searching how long to die in the cold, what the heck is she searching that for? Who's out in the cold? She doesn't know anything, right? She didn't see anybody when she left. Doesn't make any sense. It means that she's trying to figure out how long it's going to take for him to die out there. But we'll see. So between 2:30 and 3 a.m., Lucky plows Fairview and sees a small SUV that he later says looks kind of like a Ford Edge out in front of the Alberts house, out in front of 34 Fairview. Hi, Nanya. Okay, so then we'll go on to the next one. At 4:53 in the morning, if an expert gets on the stand and confirms the 2:27 Google search it's a wrap. I couldn't agree with you more. Hi, Deets. You don't need to start at the beginning. You guys lived this. You guys know all this stuff. Oh, Deets sent you over? Oh, look at that. Told us to crash the party. Come crash. We're just going through. I'll put this in here so it's a lot of new people are popping in. I just threw a very small Prezi together for the Karen Reed case. It has the who's who, and it has the critical timeline based on as many of the factual times I could pull versus just the statements. So I try to get just as many of the factual time from data as I could. Bob and Jay are both streaming it. Melanie Little is streaming it. 13th juror 13. Scotty Skulls, you were already part of a group. You don't need to go to another group. You're already here. You're part of the original group. Law and Crime, Court TV. There's going to be so many people streaming the trial that I don't think it's even going to. You're not going to have an issue finding it. You're not. It's just going to be what your preference is on commentary. If you want regular commentary from people like us, if you want lawyer commentary, if you want no commentary, it's going to be just wherever you choose to watch it. But you're not going to have any problem finding it. So 4:53 a.m., Karen wakes up John's niece, and they together call Jennifer to figure out where John is, if she's seen John, because they can't find him. Chicken lady. Hi, Mags. Okay, 4:59 a.m., Jennifer calls John, no answer. So again, trying to figure out where the heck he is. 5 a.m., Karen calls John's friend, Carrie Roberts. Carrie Roberts becomes a major player later, so she is on the who's who, but she's not at the house. She was not at this party at the Alberts home. She wasn't there that night. She just goes there the next morning with Jennifer McCabe and Karen Reed. So she's calling her just to see if she's heard from John. Now, at 5:04, Jennifer calls John, no answer. 5:05, Jennifer calls Karen. They talk for 43 seconds. Nor was she at the bar. Thank you. Yes, nor was she at the bar. And then at 5:07, Karen is seen backing out of the garage at John O'Keefe's house. Oh, Nancy, that's so nice of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Even though when I think I screwed up and then I didn't really screw up, I actually did it right. So this is the infamous video where you can see her backing out. I could probably throw some links like that in here to make it easier for people. Maybe I'll do that. I'll throw some links on here that'll make it so it'll take you right to those videos in the Prezi. So if anybody wants to use that, they can. So I'll put that in here later. So Karen is seen backing out of the garage, and this is when we see that she bumps into John O'Keefe's car. You can really tell when you look at the back window and the back tire, just the shift, and you can see that she does back into the car. Now, did she back into it hard enough to bust her tail light will be, another thing that they're going to have to show. Here, I cracked my tail light. At 5:08 and 5:09, Jennifer calls John twice, no answer. At 5:11, Karen's SUV is seen on camera heading toward the Waterfall Bar. So she's heading back to where she remembers being the night before and seeing if he's there or what happened. This is another reason I do believe that even if they can't prove that she's not really remembering all the details of the evening prior. And that makes me go, okay, there's some intoxication there. Absolutely. At 5:14, Jennifer calls John and no answer. At 5:15, Karen's SUV is seen leaving the area of the Waterfall Bar. 5:16, Karen calls Jennifer and the call lasts for 157 seconds. At 5:18, Karen's SUV is seen around the Temple Beth Abraham. Hi, Heather. So you can see she's out trying to figure out where, what she was doing, where she was, where he could possibly be. She's looking for him. So she's obviously not even. This is where I go, if she thought oh my gosh, I did hit him, and she is remembering that she did hit him, in fact, and it's a statement versus a question, why is she driving to all these random ass places trying to see where he is? She would already know that she hit him, because that's what they're trying to say in the morning, is that she's like, no, I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. So why would she be out at 5 a.m. trying to figure out where the hell he's at? That's kind of where I'm at, trying to retrace her steps. Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't make sense. If you zoom in and watch the tire of John's vehicle the whole time, you see the vehicle move for sure. It took me a bit to actually see it. Yeah, you have to. It's the snow on the back window and the back passenger tire, or the back driver tire. And it's just you can see the shift in the car. But I just don't, like I said, I don't know if it was a hard enough bump to crack a taillight. That's going to be a thing. Yeah, her not recalling dropping him off the night before, point of contention, because I think, was she too drunk and could possibly have done something? Right. So does this go into favoring the prosecution's theory that she, backed up into him going 24 miles an hour? She's just too drunk to know, but then they're thinking that she was, she's so drunk, she's pissed off, and then she does it, and she just doesn't absolutely, she doesn't actually remember, but then they're claiming that she states in the morning that she did it, instead of questioning whether she did it. Hey, Nicole. Welcome. So 5:19 to 5:32, multiple calls are exchanged between Karen and Jennifer. Jennifer leaves at 5:39. Jennifer leaves her house in Karen's SUV. So in between here, essentially what ends up happening is Karen drives over to Jennifer McCabe's house, and Carrie Roberts meets them there. They return to John O'Keefe's house, and I believe it's said that Jennifer is actually driving Karen's car because she shouldn't be driving. So she ends up driving the car back to John O'Keefe's house. Carrie follows, and then they end up leaving all together in one car. So at 5:46, they arrive back at John O'Keefe's house. So 5:52, Jennifer calls John again. No answer. 5:52, Karen, Jennifer, and Carrie leave John's house. This is also interesting to me. So at 5:57 a.m., they're all back at the Waterfall Bar. Why are they all back at the Waterfall Bar? Like, why did they go back over there? Can anybody answer that for me? Like, why would they have driven back over to the Waterfall Bar instead of going? I mean, at least even if Karen doesn't remember, Jennifer knows that he had shown up at the house. I'm not even that he went in. She's saying that she saw the SUV outside. So she knows he was there. And she's like, hello, where are you? So why wouldn't she say, no. You were at the house. You dropped him off. Why would they go back here? This is another weird thing for me. Why in all these conversations that they're having between Karen and Jennifer, who for whatever reason today I seem to want to mix up their names all the time, why would they go back there? Pro point for the defense. We should do like a pro and cons, like one for the prosecution, one for the defense. Buy more time. Well, yeah, she obviously, if she has Googled how long to die in the snow, maybe at this point she's like, it's not time yet. We can't go back there. Because for me, it'd be like, well, I know you guys were there. I told John for you guys to pull behind me, and I saw the SUV leave. I saw you leaving. So I know you guys were there. You didn't bring him back to the Waterfall Bar. Like, that doesn't make sense. So unless they're just driving by here and like they're retracing exactly how they drove, I don't know. It's kind of an odd thing, because there's a couple different ways to go from John's house to 34 Fairview. And we'll talk about that too on the map. So 6:03, all three of them arrive at 34 Fairview. At 6:03, Jennifer calls 911. We did listen to a little bit of that 911 call, and I can put when I put the links in here, you guys will have those too. Immediately, an officer arrives at the scene. He gets there pretty quickly, so he's not too far. Now, 6:04 to 6:11, there's 432 steps registered on John's phone, which is 660 feet. This is, they find the phone and they start to, they have the phone in hand. So now the phone is in their hands. We know this is not John O'Keefe, right? Because now we have Karen who's lying on top of him trying to warm her up and all the things. It's just, we know that somebody is holding the phone. We're told that it's probably Carrie Roberts, but she hands it to the officer, so on and so forth. But we know those are not John's steps. It's very simple. It's not a very in-depth one like the Delphi 1 deets. So I just tried to throw it together super quick so it was easy to share with everybody, and that people could use it if they wanted to. It feels like I'm in 3rd grade geography. You are. You're going to be quizzed because I'm going to show you the map, and then you're going to have to memorize all the spots too. None of the police reports say they found John's phone under him. Only Jen McCabe says it was underneath him in the police reports in the docs. Well, why did somebody go underneath him to get his phone? Well, that's another thing too. It's like, yeah, so how did they figure out the phone was underneath him? Was it just kind of like partially underneath him? Leander's all, I'm down for a quiz. Let's do it. Don't ask me the difference between Karen and Jennifer, apparently, because I can't do that. Only Carrie Roberts saw and retrieved the phone under John, according to, yeah. So Carrie says she found the phone and then she had it. So the phone is found. They have it. 6:07 and 6:08, Jennifer calls her sister, who's inside 34 Fairview. She's in the house. Calls her sister twice. Both calls show as answered. Yet her sister Nicole and her brother-in-law Brian Albert do not come out of the house. Neither one come outside. Brian is essentially a first responder, and he doesn't come. And this is his, another officer is down in his front yard, and they don't come outside. That's another very, very strange thing to me. Why don't they come outside? At 6:08, Jennifer takes a screenshot of her brother-in-law Brian Albert's contact info. Also weird. At 6:23, Jennifer calls her brother-in-law Brian Albert. He does not answer the phone. At 6:23, she now Googles how long to die in kicked. So another version of how long to die in cold. But not the same version from the 227 time frame. It's not like she's not going back and using that old search. It's a totally different search. She ends up searching something else right before, but I didn't put it in here because it wasn't critical. 6:24 a.m., Sergeant Link arrives at the scene. At 6:24, now Jennifer Googles again the same way that it was at 227, the how's long to die in cold. This one is the one that they're trying to say is showing up on the 227 because of how she did the Google search. Like, how does that make sense? So there's another search here that she's already done, and now they're saying that she uses another window that she had open at 2 o'clock in the morning that she pulls this up. But wouldn't she just Googled that a minute before. Wouldn't she have just used the same search? This is, I don't know. For me, I think there are 3 searches. That's what I believe there are 3 searches. I'm going to need some expert on the stand that's going to really prove to me that there's not 3 searches. So at 6:38 in the morning, Trooper Proctor is notified of that there is a scene that he needs to start investigating. At 7:21, Karen returns a missed call from Jennifer. 7:24, Sergeant Link leaves the scene. At 7:50, John O'Keefe is declared dead. Now this is interesting to me because, and it seems to be a conversation that's happening on social media, John's cause of death is blunt force trauma with hypothermia. His manner of death, which is when they say it's suicide, accidental, murder, homicide, when they say that, that part is undetermined. So they cannot, the medical examiner did not say how he died. They just say his cause of death. They can't say what the manner of death was. Now, I was always told, and maybe it's wrong because we're like some of the things we're going to talk about here when it comes to people with a lot more experience than me, I was always told that you're not dead until you're warm and dead. That you had to bring the body back to normal temperature when somebody's suffering from like hypothermia because you can't actually tell that they're dead. Now there's another side to this that says no, that's not true, that you don't have to. But I've always thought that. So now Joseph Scott Morgan, who, like I said, knows a lot more than I do, and we're going to get into some conversations about him soon, says that that's not true, and that he believes they were working on John O'Keefe from the time that he was found at the scene until the time that he's declared dead because he was essentially, they thought they could save him. Yeah, Gilletta, that's what I was always told. Like, you can't be dead until you're warm and dead. But I mean, who am I? Like, I'm just some YouTube person who, I'm not, Joseph Scott Morgan obviously has done this a lot longer than I have, but Okay, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. I know. So it's like, I don't know. And Joseph Scott Morgan said, no, it's false. And that's what you've always heard too. Yeah. So this is interesting because so for Joseph Scott Morgan is saying that essentially no, that they were actually working on him because they were doing life-saving measures, that he was not dead. Oddly, in the 911 call from Jennifer McCabe, she essentially tells them that he is dead, that she thinks he's dead. Question for me: if it is the dog, where's the bottom jaw teeth marks? We're going to talk about that too. Let's get through the timeline. We'll go to that. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. So I don't know. They cut his shirt at the scene. So at 8:30 now, Julie, if you guys remember Julie, she's the one who originally had texted John to come over to Waterfall. So Julie is the sister-in-law to the homeowners. And so she says she's showing up at 8:30 in the morning because it's her nephew's birthday and she's going to bring him some donuts. This goes back and forth when it comes to different tests or different statements that are made by people, because she originally says that she first learned that John O'Keefe was dead from Jennifer McCabe, who called her at like 5 a.m. And now, if that's true, and Jennifer McCabe called her at 5 a.m. and said John O'Keefe was dead, that's an hour before they find John O'Keefe. And so I said this. I try to just do this with the data and not with the statements, because, I mean, we'd be here another 8 hours with the statements. So when she arrives with the donuts, they're like, "No, come in the house. Like, you got to come in. We got to talk to you." And so Julie goes inside. Now at 9 a.m., Jennifer calls Link to ask Sergeant Link to ask him to come back to 34 Fairview to tell him that she remembered something. And she says she remembered saying, Karen saying that she hoped she hadn't hit John. So this is essentially where, depending on what side you're on, this is where the cover-up would start. That they're all in the house, they're all getting their story straight, and she now they're like, "Okay, well, call him back here. Come back, and we're going to tell you that this is what we heard. We did hear her say this." You're staring at the phone data right now? I don't know why I always thought dog bites would be the top, because that's where the canine teeth are. Mm-hmm. Is the warm and dead requirement different for different types of death? Hypothermia versus domestic violence, vehicular manslaughter. Well, at that point, there is no type of death yet, because this is the first responders that are working on him and the doctors at the hospital. So there's got to be an actual protocol behind it. Yes. So his clothes. Oh, yeah, Scott. See, there's so much. I thought I could do this in a short amount of time. I'm doing my best to try to keep this as minimal as possible. But yes, so they took his clothes off at the hospital, and Trooper Proctor ends up taking the clothes and he puts them in the trunk of his vehicle for approximately 2 to 3 weeks before logging them as evidence. So they're just in the back of his car, essentially. Susan. Yeah, hypothermia is cold. No difference to EMS nor ER nurse. I'm not a doctor. Okay. So I kind of just am like sticking on some of the things that I think that are going to be the weirdest parts. So she calls him and asks him to come back. Well, Karen's like losing her shit, and they're talking about that they're gonna hold her on a what do you call it there? What do you call it? They're just basically gonna hold her because she's like losing her mind, and they're worried that she's gonna do some type of self harm. Sanction, I think it's called a sanction there. So at 9:08, they're taking her blood at the Good Samaritan Medical Center. Sectioned. That's what it is. Thank you. Yeah, Sleuthie, tell us. What'd you find? What are you looking at? Sectioned. That's what it is. So this is a point that the defense is asking for. And in one of the last motions hearings, they're like, hey, this should be thrown out because this was not done under the proper protocol of being able to, like the legal way of being able to do it to show that she was intoxicated. When this is taken, her blood is at like a 0.07, 0.08, 0.06, 0.07. Somebody will tell me which one it is, but it's right around 0.07. So then they have somebody who's trying to extrapolate from that data that if you go back in time, how intoxicated she would have been around 12:30 in the morning. I know, Stephen, it really is. I literally get nauseous thinking about how it could end either way. It really will. It's up in the air. Tricked her to come back so they could section her. So they could get this information. She gets a call from Canton PD for 2 minutes, 45 seconds. We don't know who that is, though. We don't know who called her. You're talking about Jen McCabe. Ah, shit. Why is my thing doing that? It's so weird. Okay, there we go. So at 10:41, now we have a new player, because like I said, there's a lot of them, which is why I have the who's who. So Sergeant Yuri Buchanek contacts the medical examiner, telling her that John's death is being investigated. So it's only 10:41 in the morning. This is the same day, mind you. They just found him at 6. They just declared him dead at 7:50. And now we have Sergeant Buchanek who's saying, we're investigating the death as suspicious due to a domestic violence situation. At 10:41, they're thinking it's domestic violence. And the only people they've really talked to at this point are the people who were in the house that morning that have now come together and gotten their story straight. So at 11:22, Jennifer arrives home where Trooper Prochnick and Sergeant Buchanek interview her. Okay, before I move on to the next one, let me see what Sleuthie's saying here. So she got a call from Canton PD for 2 minutes, 45 seconds at 8:38. Okay, so right here. Jen then makes an outgoing call to Link Cell at 8:59 for 13 seconds. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like somebody called her and said, do this. Hi, Punksy. So somebody from Canton called her. How long did it last? Where was that other comment you had here? 42 minutes and 45 seconds. So somebody from Canton PD calls her 2 minutes, 45 seconds, and then she makes this call back and says this. Do you think a defendant has to be likable to a jury? Depends on the jury, to be honest with you. One thing I have found is I think a lot of jurors take it very seriously that they are, they have somebody's future in their hands. So sometimes yes, and sometimes no. I think it depends on the juror. And then she's got an incoming call from Proctor. Ah, shit. An incoming call from Proctor's cell at 10:55 for 1 minute and 18 seconds. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then she leaves and goes home. Just Me says, Fed's expert was specific. Karen Reed's SUV didn't hit John. And John didn't hit Karen Reed's SUV. Then, if the Commonwealth insists on vehicular and KR isn't responsible, were other vehicles at the scene? Maybe one of those vehicles are responsible. Hey, Snappy. I'm just waiting for Sleuthy Goosey's comment, because she's like, here's the kicker. Now I got to know what the kicker is. Susie says, I'm betting the dog attacked John in the house because they were arguing. Dog attacks John, beat the fuck out of John. They put him out. Plan was to say he got pissed and left. One thing, the Emmy says John's injuries were not from a fight, which is actually the first mention of a fight. That they're not from a fight. The incoming call from Proctor's cell at 12:49 p.m. lasting 1 minute and 9 seconds. She hangs up and immediately deletes the screenshot of Brian Albert's contact info she took at 6:08. Yes. John's injuries don't line up with the vehicle. That's where I'm at with it. That's the part that gets me on the her hitting him part. Hi, Jen P. Sounds plausible. I can add those. I can add those, Sleuthy. I'll add them into the timeline so that, because I think that will play a lot into the defense theory as well. They did, yeah. So it's domestic violence. So that's what he tells. That's what he tells the Emmy. Like, we're investigating this as domestic violence. And then the Emmy is saying it wasn't a fight, so then they have to get rid of domestic violence. He said that at 10:41 in the morning. So then this is when Jennifer McCabe goes home, and she's interviewed by the two officers. So now at 4:12 p.m., Karen's SUV is towed from her parents' home, which is also an interesting point from the defense, is that they're saying that the officers are saying they didn't actually tow it for like an hour later, because there's some missing time on when the SUV gets from Karen Reed's parents' house back to the lot where they're going to be looking at it, which also happens to be missing the video of the car being put into the garage at the police station. So there's more video that's missing. So 5:25, Trooper Matthew Dunn and David DeCiccio, I don't know how to say his name correctly, interview Carrie Roberts. This is the first time that she ends up interviewed. But if we look at the actual timeline, she's been on the phone all day with Jennifer McCabe, who originally they didn't know each other, supposedly. And now they've been talking all day on the phone, over and over and over again. At 5:30, Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchnick seize Karen's cell phone. At 5:30, this is when the crime scene starts to be investigated. So Sir and Lieutenant Brian Tully, and Tully comes into play also, search 34 Fairview. The search team locates one piece of clear plastic taillight. At 5:30, the search team locates two pieces of red plastic taillight. And at 5:30, the search team locates one black Nike sneaker. At 6 p.m., the search team locates three pieces of clear and red plastic taillight. And then that's it for that day. On the 30th, Proctor and Buchnick interview Katie McLaughlin, who's the EMT, who states that she heard Karen saying she hit John with her car. For whatever reason, there's other EMTs at the scene that they do not go and interview. And none of those other ones say they heard Karen say she was hit with a car. So the only one they choose to interview is this one. Now, January 31st, officers review the ring footage at John's home. John's autopsy takes place with a finding of unknown manner of death, with the cause of death being blunt force trauma and hypothermia. On February 1st, Buchnick and Trooper Keefe review footage at the both bars, the CF McCarthy bar and Waterfall bar. And then on February 1st, Karen Reed is arrested. Okay, let me check on you guys real quick. This is just like the Delphi case. The more you learn, the stranger it becomes. Yes. What about a dog barking? Who do they call the taillight fairy? I can't keep anyone's name straight. Well, so there's a couple of them that have these weird things to do with the taillight. One is Proctor, and Proctor is actually friends with the homeowner's brother, wife. They were in Proctor's sister's wedding. One of the Alberts was in the wedding as well as Proctor. When they called for the tow, why did they say it was involved in MV? They hadn't even seen it. Right. That's another thing. So immediately when the car is getting towed, they now have changed it from domestic violence because like we talked about, the ME states that there was no fight. So if there's no fight, then what else could it be? So now it's got to be vehicular manslaughter, apparently, is what they're going to go for, which is what they arrest her for. But before they even see the car, they haven't even seen the car yet. Same day, the 29th of January, they go and impound the car because that's what they say it was. It was involved in a motor vehicle accident. But they don't even know because they haven't even seen the car yet. But we also have what is his name? Shit. Why can't I think? This one. Berkowitz, who goes to the home a couple days later, goes to the home and then goes to John's home, then goes back to 34 Fairview and just happens to be driving by and spots a piece of taillight. So that's why I said there's two that are kind of deemed the people who would have been planting any type of taillight there. More missing video. Hi, Kyra. See, this is what I thought. Her car would have had a backup camera. I don't know what's going on with that. Nobody's anything that I've dug into. I haven't really found anything on that. If you guys in chat know more about this backup camera, please let me know. Is that gone too? The missing videos is insane. Is that video gone too? The backup camera video? I don't have an answer for that, so I don't want to tell you and be wrong. Four? I only know of three. There was four people who owned Ford Edges. Well, the big thing is that nobody originally had a Ford Edge there. Nobody was talking about having a Ford Edge there. So when does the Ford Edge come into play? Like, where was it? Where was it at the time that John O'Keefe would have been there? If it was parked out in the front, why didn't anybody talk about it? That's quite a journey down memory lane. Because it's just like a factory one. Well, see, like my husband's backup camera records, so I don't know. That's why I'm trying to figure it out. My backup camera doesn't. His does. No, I know that that's where it comes from, but where did it physically come from? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Nobody states that there was a Ford Edge there at the time that Ryan Nagel was there. Nobody states there was a Ford Edge parked there on the street when Karen Reed was there. There's no talk of this Ford Edge until the snowplow driver, Lucky, says between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning, there was one there. It was not there earlier. Exactly. So where does it come from? Whose is it? Who knows at this point? Hi, Charmaine. Okay, so hopefully this is somewhat helpful. I can go and add in the links to the timeline. I'll drop you guys the link for this one more time. Like I said, it's very simplistic. It's not very deep. If you guys have anything that you think would be important to add to it, let me know. I have no problem adding to it. I just didn't, like I said, I didn't go too far into it because, opening statements are Monday, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys the basic overview, but wanted you guys to be able to have it. So, you guys can go in. It's super easy to, if you guys haven't used the Delphi one, this one's way easier. It's only a couple different shots, and it just tells you the who's who, and then it tells you the critical timeline, which I can update with some links for you guys to be able to go watch the video of like her backing up out of John O'Keefe's drive or out of the garage. And I can add like the 911 call that was recorded on the voicemail. So I can put those kinds of things in there too. And then I'll add some of the stuff that Sleuthy was talking about to the timeline for the calls from Canton PD. So, oh, bye, Susie. Thank you for being here. So yeah, we're not done. I'm just saying like this part's done. But you can buy a recording system, but few cars come with a recording backup camera. Yeah, my husband's is bought. Yeah, for sure. So that's what I'm saying. I didn't know. I don't know what she had. What did we learn? Hopefully something. Okay, so let's pull up the playlist so I can show you guys a couple things from here. Which one should we go with? Hold on, I'm just looking at the playlist real quick. Okay, we'll do the dog one first. So Melanie Little, who's an attorney that has been following this case,
to John O'Keefe's right arm.
We'll be doing the she'll be streaming the trial, and she's, like I said, she's covered a lot of this case. So she had a gentleman on who was a dog trainer. So we'll go through this one first. Let me go back and find you guys, figure out what tab I'm actually on. Here's Jennifer McCabe's data sheet. Okay, let me go over to my chat so I can watch that. That's not what I wanted. So I can actually click on the link. Oh, perfect. Okay, this is good. So this is just Jennifer McCabe's. This is just Jennifer McCabe. This is what Sleuthy just threw together. Just Jennifer McCabe's info. Answered. Look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. So it gives us everything that Jennifer McCabe was doing from her cell phone data. Does this also, did you put anything from her watch on here, or this is just the cell phone by itself? I hit the wrong button, Sleuthy. So I started playing something I didn't mean to play. Pull behind me. Hello, where are you? Hello. No Apple Health data. Okay, so this is literally just her phone data. It shows what was answered and what wasn't answered, how long the calls lasted, who she talked to, how long she talked to them. Very nice. Beautiful. Well done, Sleuthy. Round of applause. Yay. Okay, let me go back over here. So back to, and what was deleted? Yeah, because that's another thing, is she likes to delete everything. Okay, so she has a gentleman that comes on. I'm gonna skip ahead to when he comes in here. So she's talking about these marks on John's arm, and she gave the information to, or gave the, to this gentleman named Garrett. I want to get when he comes on. So we're going to listen to this for a little bit and talk about what he has to say. And this is why, Scotty Skulls, if you're still here, this is what I was saying. We're going to talk about the dog marks because he talks a little bit about your question on why there's top marks and not bottom marks. So let me know if you guys can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up in chat if you can hear it.
Tell the viewers about your channel, tell us first about your background and your experience.
I can pretty much guarantee you I've seen more dog bites than most any medical examiner. And I would say that because people don't often die from dog bites. Okay. Very rare, even police dog bites, which can be very serious and very gruesome. So I don't think medical examiners get to see a lot of dog bites on dead bodies. It just doesn't happen. Now we're talking about gunshot wounds, and I'd be a little bit out of my league there. But when it comes to dog bites, I can't even tell you how many I have seen. I don't even know which. There's so many cool videos to show you. There's some behind the scenes stuff that we don't normally share. But I thought your viewers would find it interesting how we get police dogs to bite and kind of the mechanics of the bite and some of the, like I said, the equipment that we use. And I actually brought some. So if this interests you at all, let me know. But this is a typical bite sleeve. And we use this basically to allow the dog to bite as hard as they want, but to protect ourselves. These come in different grades, thicknesses, and they get thinner and thinner or thicker as you need them. But as we start progressing and trying to get the dogs to actually, one of the hardest things to teach a police dog to do actually is bite human flesh. It's very hard to do because dogs, generally speaking, are man's best friend. And so to get them to actually go from biting equipment to actually biting real human flesh, some dogs, it's a very easy transition. Those are those harder dogs, a little bit crazier. But most of the time, we actually have a hard time getting them to commit to a bite. And so a dear friend of mine, actually, Steve Sprouse, who's been in the police canine world for probably almost 4 decades, invented this equipment that I want to show you now. And his company is called Arm and Lagan. And what he does is he creates these prosthetic limbs specifically made for teaching police dogs how to bite. And this particular one has
kind of creepy,
a little bit more than a handful of bites on it. The idea here being we set up a training scenario with a bad guy. I'll play the bad guy, let's say. The dog, by the way, does not know it's a training scenario. That's the ticket. That's the trick. In all dog training, by the way, whether it's pet dogs or police dogs, they don't know whether they're training or not. We try to make it as real to life as possible. So the dog comes out, we hide, finds the bad guy, and the only thing we try to make.
C-Star, no, he wasn't wearing anything prepared for super cold. Nope.
Available is this, because this is the only thing stopping us from getting really bit. There's no other protection. And I want to show you, you see the lacerations that are caused from dog bites? You're not really seeing punctures. It looks as if this was stabbed with a knife. Now that's the closest to a puncture. But for the most part, it's ripping. It's a ripping type thing. Dogs bite and they pull. And at the same time, we are naturally pulling back to create our own back tension, which is exactly what a rabbit would do in the wild. You know what I mean? A rabbit doesn't, we call them, there's no such thing as suicide bunnies. If a bunny or any other prey item is getting bit, their whole objective is to get away, get away, get away. And that's where you get the lacerations that happen. So that's one piece. And here's another one. By the way, tell me if this doesn't look kind of similar to something we may see a little later. Pretty interesting, right? Don't mind the discoloration. This was just a funky mold. But again, look at the lacerations. And I have to kind of spread it because of the material, but they're more like cut wounds. And you can see the angle, right? It's pretty consistent depending upon how you present it. So hopefully your viewers find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And
would there go ahead, go ahead, finish before you, and then I'll would there be
if you wanted to see a video of a dog actually doing it?
Yeah, we do, totally. But we're saying could you explain bite marks on one side of the arm? Maybe you can't see all the photos, and Jo could have wounds under. Sorry if duplicate. I have not seen any photos of the inside of the arm. So let us know in your experience what you see in these types of dog attacks.
Sure. So yeah, sometimes you will not see like a mirror image of the bite. Sometimes it really is. It's just like you see here. It's very hard to tell where the top tooth was, the bottom tooth was, where's the matchup. Those top canines tend to do the most damage, but it's very hard to match up. Like, is this the top? Is this the bottom? Is this from one bite? Or is that one canine? Is this a different bite? Very tricky to tell. It's not like a vampire bite, where it's 2 here and 2 here. It never looks like that.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys a trigger warning because I'm going to show some photos really quick. So if anybody has doesn't want to see the photos of John, just shut your camera off for a second, or just just look away. But I want to show you guys these bite marks, or what the defense is claiming is bite marks down here on the bottom. And so to what Scotty was asking earlier is like, why is there nothing on the bottom? Well, we don't have photos of what's on the bottom of his arm, number one. So that's a tough one. And two, he shows the photos too. Yeah. But some have speculated right here, if you see on the bottom here, that these would be the top and that these could possibly be the bottom. Like right here, top, bottom. So, and we don't see what's underneath to see a full bite. I don't know. I'm not a dog bite expert. So this is one of those things, like I listen to other people and try to learn. So we're going to have to figure out what the experts say when they get on the stand. But that's potentially a top and a bottom. Potentially a top and a bottom. So, but I mean, they're horrifying pictures because, you know, we know what the outcome is. But that's what to look at. And here's a close up of these two right here. So 2 and then the 1. I don't know. But I guess for me, like, and I keep going back to, are these in what on the car did this? If it's not a dog and it is the car, what on the car did this? They're trying to say it's because the Commonwealth, and I say prosecution because I'm just used to prosecution, but there it's called the Commonwealth. They're trying to say that he was holding on to this glass that he had taken from the waterfall bar and that the glass shatters and that's what cuts up his arm like this. So, and then they didn't take any like swabs to figure out what, like if there was any type of, like what was, like if there was anything even in these wounds. So like dog DNA, we will never know because there was no swab taken to be able to figure it out. I don't see how that's from a car. And I've looked at other, accidents that come from a car too. So people are like, it doesn't look like a dog. And to me, it doesn't look like a car. So I'm like, I don't know. My brother got bit by a dog when we were kids and he had puncture wounds. I got bit by a flippin' little Chihuahua on my knee and I had puncture wounds and scratches. I had both. The top had the scratches because the puncture actually went further. So it was a puncture with a scratch when it went to bite down. And you think a glass would be more clean. Yeah. My mother of dragons. I just don't see how a car did this. Or not even a car. I don't see how her car with the damage to her car did this. I think I'm missing the connection there. Where is his DNA inside the house? Well, no, they never searched inside the house. They never did any type of investigation inside the home. So we have no idea. We have no idea whether his DNA was there or not because they never bothered to check it. If those are your two choices, right, Thistle? That's, I think, nobody's giving like a third explanation. I would love to have a different explanation besides, because I just don't see the damage to her car causing this. And I definitely don't see a broken glass causing this. Oh, Jen P, for real, my face got mauled by my friend's Rottweiler when I was 14. Luckily, a plastic surgeon was on staff and did an amazing job with small and tight stitches. You can see the scars, and can't even see the scars unless I point it out. Well, thank God. Hand looks bit, middle left. Can't just make out what could possibly be puncture wounds. Don't happen from a tail light. Yeah. And I think that's essentially, Karen's comment about, and I'm probably going to misquote it, but it's like, my tail light is cracked, but John is pulverized. Like the injuries to him, there's no way that my tail light being cracked did anything like that. Like it just doesn't make sense. They said they found broken glass near John in the yard. So that's another big thing. They went to CF McCarthy's and they went to Waterfall. Were they able to match any of that broken glass to anything from there? Like, was it actually that glass that he was holding? I-1960. The blue-black of the back of his hands. So this was another thing that this was one that we're going to get to Joseph Scott Morgan here in just a minute, but so let me finish this part first before we jump ahead. Gravel on the road wouldn't even make the marks like that. I don't know. Okay, so let me take this down and we'll go back. So anybody who was on, wasn't watching because of what was put up, you guys are welcome to come back down, Scott. So let's go back to listening to him.
And one of the actually the hardest things to do, one of the not fun parts of my job as a police canine supervisor is writing bite reports. I cannot tell you how many bite reports I have done. And one of the parts of the bite report that is very important is to document in as much detail as possible the actual injury. And so, yeah, you could say he had a dog bite on the arm. Yeah, but it was actually, and this is, trust me when I say this, how do you have a 3 laceration dog bite? Meaning sometimes the dog bites are pretty straightforward. It's a single bite. And when we look at the injury, it's 1 or 2 cuts here and 1 on the bottom. And then I'm like, I have to call the canine handler like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, man. Is your dog missing a canine tooth? Which happens. Sometimes they get pulled out, ripped out, whatever. They're like, no, I just got all 4. I'm like, well, I don't know how we only got 3 lacerations, but sometimes the dog's coming in at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always just a perfect bite. And the other thing that you see with untrained dogs or dogs that are, whether it's a police canine washout or it's just a dog who doesn't know how to bite, wasn't trained to bite, is you will see what's called shallow biting. Shallow biting is when they only use their canines to bite, and it creates a lot more of those lacerations versus police dogs, trained dogs to bite. We teach them to bite and hold and bite deep. I actually sent this photo to 2 other police canine handlers and who are also trainers who themselves have seen countless bites. Probably between us, we've seen, hundreds each. And I didn't say anything. I said, what are your thoughts on this? And they said, there's 0 question that this is a dog bite. 0 question to them. Their thought, though, was that this was a police dog that probably should have been washed out. This is not what we want to see on a police dog bite. We don't want to see constant re-engagements, which is what this looks like. But this is what I would expect from, like that German Shepherd we saw bite that lady, the delivery driver, right? Just naturally going in, doing as much damage as possible, not understanding the mechanics of biting deep and holding. These, in my opinion, are bites utilizing the front of the mouth. Furthermore, I had seen video, and I could be wrong, but when Mr. O'Keefe was last seen on that surveillance camera in the bar, it appears like he's wearing a long sleeve shirt, almost like a sweater maybe.
Yeah, somebody was asking that exact question. So let me pull up that exact question, but keep going.
And this is exactly indicative of a dog, and we see this even with trained police dogs, when someone's wearing baggy clothing or long sleeves or jeans or a jacket, you're going to get these more shallow bites. The dog's constantly trying to get a grip on the prey. And of course, the prey item is moving away, and you're going to get these. This is what's considered shallow bite marks. This is the dog trying to get a grip, but the only thing that's sinking in are those front teeth. And the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but this bite right here, I'm even calling it a bite. I'm trying to stay objective here, but these look like, and you see this a lot with shallow bites. What it looks like is this is maybe the left canine, maybe the bottom right canine, or the canine here, but these.
Is there a way for you to enlarge that photo on your screen? Yeah, there we go. It's a V shape.
Like the front teeth. Think of the dog's, let's say potentially the teeth were here, the bottom teeth were here. These little ones here are the little, and I'm not a veterinary dentist by any means. These are the small little baby teeth. Actually have a very crude example here. I don't know if you guys can still see me or if I have to stop.
Yeah, I'll give you the full screen.
Don't mind this. We use this for one of our videos. Not the canines, but these little teeth right here. When you get a shallow bite, that's what it looks like. And I can actually pull up another picture of a dog bite that we know is a dog bite. And you're going to see the same kind of, I don't know if you want to call it striations, but those front baby teeth also causing damage. So I'll stop sharing for a second, and then I'll reshare.
So Olivia asked, can the dog bite and scratch through sweatshirt sleeves, long sleeves, on long sleeve shirt?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's when you're going to see, again, more shallow biting, less punctures, because the dog keeps trying to get a grip, but that material offers just a little bit of protection and makes the material slip more, which gets you more of that kind of striping or laceration. So,
okay, so real quick so talking about the shirt does have some rips and tears on it, but once again, we don't know what the rips and tears were, and Proctor put this in his car trunk for multiple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. It was left back there, so no idea how any type of chain of custody or contamination could have taken place. We'll have to learn more about that when the trial happens, but I think no matter which way you go, if you do believe that the car inflicted the wounds, then the shirt's going to have the cuts and rips. And if you believe the dog inflicted the wounds, then it's going to have the cuts and rips. So to talk about what was found on the car, this is another interesting point that comes up, you know, in the very last motions before trial starts, is what was actually found on the car. So they say that there was a piece of the glass that was found around John O'Keefe's body. There was a piece of the glass that was found on the car. Problem here is there is almost an hour worth of video where the car itself is in the bay and there's no, or, you know, being taken from Proctor to the bay, and there's no video. So we don't know what's happening with the car at this point. And that's another issue with chain of custody. But there was a hair that was found. And the hair is a huge issue because the original test on it says it's not, there's nothing there, it's not a big deal. So the Commonwealth takes the hair and sends it out again to have it tested, where now it's coming back as a human hair. But even if it's John O'Keefe's hair, the not hair, yeah. So even if it's John O'Keefe's hair, it doesn't even make sense because they live together essentially. I don't know how, unless it's like a bloody hair or a bloody mass of hair. There's no talk of DNA. There's no talk of like John O'Keefe's DNA being found on the car. That's not even a thing. They currently, on just the last filings, they're now saying that they just got back this information about this hair now being a hair that's not a hair. It's a very weird thing. And the defense was asking the judge to like throw it out. Like, you're 4 days before trial starting and you now want to try to bring in this hair that wasn't a hair that's now a hair and call it evidence. Like, so they want it gone. But we don't even know if it's actually a hair. That's another weird thing. But yeah, no blood evidence. So he ends up with blunt force trauma, these cuts on his arms. But there's no DNA on the car. So, okay, let's go back to this. So the dogs, we'll go back to the dog stuff. And then, the other big thing, somebody mentioned it in chat already. So if you guys don't know, so Chloe, the German Shepherd, was actually rehomed shortly. They'd had the dog for 7 years. 7 years? Somebody will tell me if that's the right, but I think it's 7 years they had the dog. And they got rid of the dog months after John O'Keefe's death.
Janine says, I was under the impression Chloe was a failed police trained dog. So what we want to do is talk about both scenarios. How a German Shepherd specifically would behave as a trained canine dog, and how one would behave if it was a household pet, and how one would behave if it was a failed canine dog. And I know that you have some video to show us. So let me know which one you want to handle first.
Sure. So I came across this video just in my own research of what I do daily. We do a lot of reviews of dog bites and dog fights and things like that. So this is fairly recent. This is actually from my hometown where I grew up in South Florida, Cooper City, which is a small town outside of Fort Lauderdale. And so I'll share my screen here. And this is a delivery driver, fairly recent. I'd say this is 3 or 6 months old. She comes and delivers a package. I guess she left something, so she comes back. And you're going to see a German Shepherd that I'm very confident has little to no training. This is not a police dog. Okay. And you will see, because what I want to kind of frame here is, you don't need to be a trained police dog. You don't need to be a trained protection or quote attack dog to be a dog and bite someone. There are a lot of dogs out there biting people left and right with little to no training. And when we get into it further and we talk about the actual injuries, it actually plays into the dog that, if he was bit, that doesn't look like a police dog bite, in my opinion. And we'll talk about that. But let's go ahead and show you this video and see what you all think about it. I'll get to the part where this is her after the bite, and I want you to kind of pay attention to the type of injuries you're seeing. And the thing that I want to just continue to point out is the type of injury. A lot of people think of dog bites are puncture wounds. It's very rare that a dog bite is a puncture wound. They're often lacerations. Think of it as sticking a knife in and pulling, because naturally that's what dogs do. They bite their prey and they pull. And or if you were to get bit by a dog, the very first thing you'll try to do is pull away, and it creates those types of injuries. So let's go ahead and go into the video here. This is after the woman is bit. She's in her car and she's a little shooken up, and you can see right here, and we'll play it in a minute, but this is not a puncture wound. This is a laceration from a dog bite. And then
dog attack.
Watch how quickly this goes down. Again, very confident that this is not a protection dog. This is a German Shepherd doing what German Shepherds were bred to do for hundreds of years. Protect their home.
That attack captured by her own dash camera.
All I can say was, help me, help me. I thought I was going to die.
Deanna Riveros needed more than 30 stitches.
I'm going to go back to that. See the laceration?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not a puncture wound, but we're all pretty clear this is a dog bite.
Yep.
She got bit. The weight of the dog alone biting and trying to pull its prey down to the floor, and her potentially pulling away is what causes this. Especially too, and we see this a lot in police canine work, when the dogs bite, we are actually taught to provide what's called back tension, and it makes the dog bite harder. And or when you see police canine handlers who aren't as good as they should be, when they go to remove a dog off of a bite, they're often doing what's called a choke off. And you can call it a choke off. It's more of like a rip off. And they will actually grab the collar of the dog, especially these really high just high drive dogs in general, which we train all day, every day. And we're basically telling them, never let go. Hold on. No matter what happens, don't let go. And oftentimes you'll see police dogs. This is a story for another day, but they often do not let go on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth command, because they're like, make me. And
Wow.
So you're forced to pull the dog off, and it creates really, really bad, nasty lacerations. And I'd also say that this interaction probably lasted no more than 15 or 30 seconds. So imagine what a dog bite looks like when the fight takes place over 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. You're going to get a lot more damage. All right, so let's check this one out.
On it. All right. There you go. Wash your hand. Wash your hand. Yep. This is your hand.
Use
your other hand. Yep.
Yep. I'm going to switch with you in a second, and you're going to take that hand and put a little pressure that way with the heel. Good. Good.
So
You're safe here.
Good. It's starting to tear through.
Good, Stella.
One more. All right, now. Good. Take it off. Good. That was good.
and you see how much ripping happens, right? Rip the newspaper right
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you tell us about German Shepherds generally as a breed? Assuming that Chloe was either a washout, as you say, or was not a trained police canine at all.
Yeah, I would lean towards it probably not even being a washout. Again, it's very atypical to have a female dog even potential to go through police canine training. I'm saying it's not unheard of, but it's very rare. But again, I think.
Do you hear that? Like they won't even. There's very few female police canines. I guess looking back on all the cases, they are always boys, and I was like, that's so sexist. What's wrong with the girl dogs?
I don't even think that's the case. I think it's just your typical German Shepherd that has lineage of what we call working line German Shepherds, because not all German Shepherds are created equal, right? So it's very much in the DNA of a German Shepherd to be a guardian, a protector. And again, they don't need to be trained to do that. And yet, what can trigger a German Shepherd to do that?
Yeah.
Or any dog, but especially these power breeds. It can be just stranger danger. They know who belongs in their pack and who doesn't. But for sure, what can instigate a dog to want to bite someone is seeing violence between two humans or even between two dogs. It's like this pack mentality. They jump in almost like a feeding frenzy.
In the same vein, Joey just saying, says, are German Shepherds more prone to continue biting people after a major attack? Would that explain the next two bites?
Yes. So there's some names for it, if you will, but when they get a rep like that under their belt, we kind of call it like a boxer who gets its first win, start getting a little cocky, a little confident, and feeling like, yeah, first off, it worked out for me this time. And dogs can be pretty simple creatures. When I feel threatened, like look at that German Shepherd, zero hesitation. It bit that police officer because it's been doing that. It's been rehearsing that for, at that point, probably months and months, if not years. When I see someone I don't like, I lash out at them, and either mom removes me from the situation, which makes me feel better, or they run away. Oh yeah, you better run away. I'm going to get you next time. And so the dogs, even though they might not be biting each time, they are playing that out. And then, yes, 100% dogs that have bit before are much more likely to bite a second, third, fourth, fifth time. Same thing with our police dogs. Like I said earlier, it's very hard. One of the hardest things to do is to get a dog to actually bite someone. But once they kind of cross that bridge, that's it. Like you don't have to worry about it anymore. They just have to get that first bite under their belt, and then they're good to go.
And other people are saying, how confident are you that those injuries are from a dog attack? Oh, let me say, okay, here we go.
Does this work?
Yep, perfect.
Just the more and more I look at it, the more and more I'm convinced you know, I would bet money that this is a dog bite.
Let me ask you a question on the on this picture on the right here. There it looks to, what looks to be a giant bump on his right bicep above the first two lacerations, I'm going to call them. Can a dog dislocate a person's shoulder by latching on like that? I saw one of your videos where you said, and the dog actually came after you with one of those, what do you call the protective device that you wear on your right arm when you're training?
Yeah, sleeve.
Yeah, and you said, it feels like I dislocated my shoulder. I'm just wondering if that is something that could happen, because I don't know what that, I'm not a medical examiner.
Yeah, it would have to be an extremely well-trained dog that is very powerful to bite and hold, and then in combination with a handler using, you know, 200 pounds of their own body weight to pull the dog. You know, when did this happen? Let's say a suspect's hiding in a closet, refusing to come out. We've seen that happen. They're in a car, they're like seat belted in. I've been in situations like that. That dog has got a really good grip, and we use the 80, 90, 100 pounds worth of dog, the 200 pounds plus of me, and we yank with all of our might. Yeah, maybe you could dislocate a shoulder, but it is not typical for a dog by itself to dislocate a shoulder.
Okay. It says also John's autopsy wasn't done until 2 days later. So these wounds, the pictures of these wounds might look slightly different because of that. And yeah, I think we have to take that into consideration too.
Yeah, and
so,
you see what looks like swelling to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's very typical of dog bites is to have swelling, but you know, who knows? But these, like, I don't know how else you explain these, but this is very, very typical of puncture / lacerations. And this here too looks like it'd be caused by canines, but this is the one that sticks out the most to me.
Can you enlarge that photo a little bit?
Yeah,
it's a V shape. I can see from here. Yeah, it looks like a V shape.
Yeah, and again, to me, that looks like the front teeth getting a very shallow bite, but this looks like very typical dog bites to me, like very typical.
And you've seen quite a few dog bites.
A lot. Yeah.
22 years of training canine dogs and police dogs, and as an actual police officer. I just want to address this one more comment, because I do not think this person may have tuned in late. So let's just say this a little louder for the people in the back, or the people that are tuning in late, who say, I don't see punctures, I see lacerations, but not dog bites. No offense to your guest.
Yeah, and again, having seen countless dog bites, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, it is extremely rare to see puncture wounds on a dog bite. They are almost always lacerations.
So that's a great question. Like, how deep are they? So what we don't have as the public yet until trial starts, we don't actually have the like all the autopsy findings. We don't have the autopsy reports. So what she measured or what the wounds look like, we don't know. We haven't been told that yet, unless they talked about it in a hearing and I may have missed it. Somebody in chat might know that, but that report hasn't been released to the public. So 3 dog trainers agree that these are dog bites. Interesting. But the photos were taken at the hospital same day. Yeah. But I think from that to what she would have noted in the autopsy might be different.
Always. I mean, like I said, here you go. This is as close as we can get. Lacerations. That's what they look like. And the more untrained the dog is, the more likely it is to be a laceration than to be a puncture wound, because again, they're biting, they're pulling, you are also pulling away. They are going to be lacerations 99 out of 100 times, as you see here, right? Just lacerations is what it looks like. Ripping, the ripping of flesh.
Thank you. So to those who say those are paw scratches, you say?
No. Paw scratches wouldn't do that. Maybe from a lion or a bear, but.
Thank you.
He was an extremely good guest that she had on. That's why I wanted to show you guys that. And then, you know, like I told you guys when we started playing it, Melanie has been covering this case. She is an attorney. She's taking a lot of slack right now. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Melanie, I highly suggest you do it. She's very informative. She's also very easy to listen to, and dumbs it down for some people who aren't, you know, like me, like who need it explained sometimes, like I'm 5. So, but she's doing a great job, and she's being attacked by somebody who claims to be a professional on Twitter is going at Melanie very personally, on a very personal level, which is crazy because all she's doing is stating her opinion on a case from her perspective and her point of view. So I highly suggest going and giving her some support. And then let me get you guys the next one. Hold. So she also had, and we're going to go right into this because it kind of plays into a little bit of what they were talking about here. This is also Melanie's channel. And she has Joseph Scott Morgan, who is a death investigator and has been for many, many years. He is also, you'll recognize his voice from Nancy Grace. You'll recognize him from being on like Law and Crime and Court TV, and does a bunch of guest appearances. She's on YouTube. She left Twitter. Well, I probably would have too, because she was being trolled like ridiculous amount by somebody who claims to be a professional person is now trolling her like a professional troll. So, but he is extreme. He's obviously very educated. He's done this for a very long time. He has a podcast called Body Bags. If any of you guys are into podcasts, he has his own podcast that he does. But he also is a guest on many, many channels. So I just want to play. This is much longer. I'm not going to play this full thing. I just want to play some of it so you guys can kind of get what what he has to say. Even though I'm kind of confused on he's the one who claims that John O'Keefe did not have to be warmed up before being declared dead, and I've never heard that from anybody. But he's intelligent, and I'm like, who might argue with him? Nobody.
Show
right.
What is the rule of law, and what does the Constitution say? Left the scene, allowing him or leaving him to die in the cold. Karen Reed's version of events is that she dropped Officer O'Keefe off at this home. Troopers observed a cut to the right eyelid area of the victim. The victim's clothing, consisting of blue jeans, an orange t-shirt, long-sleeved gray shirt, and boxer shorts, were soaking wet and stained and saturated with blood and vomit. The victim was also observed to have one black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo on the side. The victim's medical records were admitted as an exhibit before the grand jury in this matter as well. Throughout said medical records, the attending physician and medical personnel described the victim's injuries at length. Said description of his injuries and medical conditions include right superior orbital ridge region, approximately 7 millimeter laceration. Positive, what looks like a plus sign to me.
Lana, Coffindaffer is trolling Melanie. So I said somebody who claims to be a professional but not being a professional is now turned into essentially we have someone acting like a prosecution shill claiming that somebody else is acting like a defense shill. Please tell me she is on 1.25. Yeah, because I want to play through some of this, but I don't want to play all of it, so I just wanted to kind of get through it. So yeah, they are on 1.25.
Positive surrounding soft tissue swelling / contusion. Positive breath sounds bilaterally. Pulseless. Positive superficial abrasions right forearm. Time of death was noted at 7:50 a.m. And then they go on to say that on January 31st, which was 2 days post-death, Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. The doctor advised the troopers that she observed several abrasions to the victim's right forearm, 2 swollen black eyes, a small cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of his nose, and approximately 2-inch laceration to the back right of his head, and multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. Dr. Scorti-Bello further advised the troopers that the victim's pancreas was a dark red color, indicating hypothermia was a contributing factor to his death. Dr. Scorti-Bello opined from her examination that the significant blunt force trauma injuries occurred prior to Mr. O'Keefe becoming hypothermic, as evidenced by the hemorrhaging in his pancreas and stomach. Mr. O'Keefe had arrived at the Good Samaritan Medical Center with a body temperature reading in the low 80s. The doctor opined that the extensive injuries to his head likely rendered Mr. O'Keefe incapacitated. The doctor further opined that upon viewing Mr. O'Keefe's injuries and her examination of the body, she observed no signs of Mr. O'Keefe being involved in any type of altercation, physical altercation, or fight. In addition, the doctor testified that the victim had abrasions on his right arm. She described abrasions as scratches caused by a blunt object or contact with a blunt object. She also went on to describe them as a cluster of them on his right upper arm, on his right forearm, mostly linear, ranging in size from a few millimeters to up to 7 centimeters. Dr. Scorti-Bello testified that throughout her thorough external examination of the victim's body, she observed no signs of an altercation or fight. Doctor also testified extensively to the injury.
Won't get too far into the drama of this, but I will also let you know that Coffindaffer is essentially also trolling Karen Reed by making comments about how Karen Reed dresses going into court. So she's on Twitter essentially trolling Karen Reed now too. I don't know. It's the craziest shit to me.
Or swelling of the victim's eyes. She testified that from her examination of the victim, both external and internal, that the bleeding and subsequent swelling around his eyes was related to the very small fractures in the skull. She testified specifically that the injury initiated or started in the back of the head, caused all the fractures in the skull, and then the eyes got red or black or purple because of the seepage of blood from the small blood vessels. The neuropathology report, completed by Dr. Renee Stonebridge, also of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and attached here too as an exhibit, are consistent with Dr. Scordi-Bello's findings. I just want to point out to the viewers that the defense adds to their responsive papers that she did not mention what they say are clear injuries to the back of both of his hands. And with that, I have so many questions.
Me too. Yeah, it's very dense material. Particularly when you don't have a narrative that explains everything that's going on here. Because one of the things that we look at in the medical legal world is, first off, in my world, the world of the coroner and the medical examiner, I much prefer examining a body and making my own assessment and try to, and this sounds so rote, but trying to understand what the body is telling me. Some people say, the body talks to you. To try to understand what evidence exists on the body, whether it be trauma that we see on the surface externally, what's going on internally. And I think in this case, which I know that we'd like to get into, is this idea of the clothing, because that's when you think about a pedestrian struck by a vehicle, it is such a layered event, and I mean that both figuratively and literally, because we see injuries where an individual is struck by a vehicle. I'm not interested initially in what's being demonstrated on the surface of the skin. I want to see the clothing to try to understand if there's any trace evidence that's there, and it needs to remain as pristine as possible. I don't want, as an investigator, anyone handling the clothing other than us. And one of the big problems that we've had for years and years is that, God bless, I know that we've probably got nurses in the audience. God bless nurses. I love nurses. They've saved my life a couple of times and my friends' lives. But their interest is not necessarily from an evidentiary standpoint. Their interest is to try to save lives. So it sounds as though in this particular case that the clothing was not handled in a manner in which we would normally expect clothing to be handled, where we're going to be preserving evidence. And that fault does not necessarily
That's when Proctor puts the clothes in the back of his car and just leaves them there for a couple of weeks and is just like, that's good. That's how we hold evidence. I know. His facial expressions and his eyebrow, he does some things with his eyebrow that I'm like, he's like, what? Are you telling me the truth right now? Like, should I take this at face value, or are you making shit up? So I think this interview really pushed Coffindaffer over the edge, because she seems to have a lot of respect for Joseph Scott Morgan, and she's just like, he's not gonna buy into like what Melanie Little is trying to sell. It's like she's not trying to sell anything. She's getting his opinion on the same information that's public that she has, that the rest of us have, and she just wants his opinion. But he does state, like, hey, I can only give my opinion on, of reading the same documents, of looking at the photos. As a death investigator, as a coroner, medical examiner, I would want to examine the body myself. I would want to examine the clothing myself. He's saying, like, I'm giving my opinion based off of the same information that is public information. But yet Coffindaffer wants to tweet out that, like, he's not going to buy into this narrative that she's selling. The narrative she's selling is written in the documents. You can't make this shit up.
So much, I think, with the clinicians as it does law enforcement, because there's a lot to be said for timeliness,
Right.
from the perspective of an investigation. Where does this investigation rest as far as the urgency, and how much, as from a law enforcement perspective, how invested are you in this investigation? Because if you were truly invested in this investigation, you would get there forthwith, and anything that's there that could give us information about this event, because now we're left with a situation where we don't necessarily have a witness, or we have a third-party witness, perhaps. We've got a lot of opinion that's out there. We've got comments that are out there, but we don't necessarily have somebody eyeballing this. So the most important elements that we have are the clothing and the body.
Mhm.
And if any of that stuff is compromised in any way, then your case might not be worth gunpowder to blow it to hell at the end of the day, because you've spoiled it at that point in time.
Right.
So I would really take issue with anybody that did not view that clothing particularly with the utmost urgency to get their hands on it and examine it.
Well, I will tell you what happened to the clothing. There are photographs in the hospital while Officer O'Keefe is in a hospital bed. The clothing is piled on the floor. And subsequent to that, the trooper Michael Proctor, who was the lead investigator from the Massachusetts State Police, took possession of the clothing but did not log it into evidence for several weeks, somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks. We're not exactly sure. So,
See, this is, I got to kind of stop you right now.
yeah, sure.
This is,
He's like, I gotta stop you right now. Like, he's even scratching his head. He's like, he's even kind of shaking his head, like, wait, what? What did you just say? Right, chicken. As far as we've been told, yeah, no.
the first I'm hearing of this relative to clothing.
Mhm.
As you know, I've been peripherally, following the case. But that in and of itself would be, how can I put it? If I were, say, for instance, if this was a case that was being handled by one of my investigators at a medical examiner's office or a coroner, that's something, that event alone relative to the clothing is something I would admonish my employee about from a supervisory standpoint, because that violates some of our basic tenets when it comes to preservation of evidence.
Right.
And I'm not being disrespectful when I say this, and please understand me and hear me right.
I'm
When we talk about the body, okay, the body of anyone, and God bless Officer O'Keefe's family, but the body, in any case, is the biggest piece of evidence that we possess, okay, because it's going to tell the tale, and any of the accoutrements that come along with the body, clothing, jewelry, anything is evidence. And so
Mhm.
that is to be handled with the utmost care. You can't be cavalier with it at all, because at the end of the day, you're going to have fingers pointing back at you. Once you walk into that courtroom, they're going to start asking you about procedure. How did you handle this? What due care did you take? How do we know? You talk, and this occurred. God, I hate to keep mentioning this guy, but the O.J. Simpson case,
Oh,
and we think about
yeah.
the blood evidence that one of the investigators carried around the trunk of the car. That again is a violation of all of the tenets that we try to enforce to our people, that we're teaching them about forensic science.
He can't handle it. He's just getting so mad. He's just like, wait, what?
And preservation of evidence and everything, and you're not going to log it in for that period of time. If that is accurate, then that goes to the heart of the case, because it's at that moment in time. If prosecution is putting forth this idea that the car struck him, okay, car struck him,
Yep.
there could potentially be evidence on the clothing. Well, if it's not logged in, that means you have nothing at all.
Yeah.
Period. Because if it's right around the back of your unit, I don't know what in the hell else you've been doing with your unit while you're riding around with evidence in it. It's
Right.
not in the chain. And you'd learn this as a
Sure.
first-year law student about the
Yeah.
importance
Chain
of
of
the chain of
custody.
evidence, accountability all the way
Uh-huh.
along. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was they did not even send the clothing. It took the defense at least 2 years to get their hands on the clothing to be able to test it, because the theory is that he was involved in a fight inside the house, beaten to a pulp, and then the family had a German Shepherd that they believe attacked his right forearm, and the defense believes that's what those injuries are. So the prosecution, something like in December of 2023, finally sent the clothing or the shirt to a canine veterinary forensic lab at UC Davis to test it for canine DNA.
Right.
But by that time, I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about whether any such evidence would still even exist or be valid or admissible. You were the expert in this case.
Well, it depends on how it's been treated during that period of time, right? And
Yeah.
we've already got an environment, which is a very wet environment, that this victim would have been
She tells him.
in snow.
She tells him about the red Solo cups too.
Of course, it's freezing outside, but it's wet, and unfortunately, particularly when you're talking about a molecular level like DNA, water destroys a lot of things. It compromises cases many times. Improperly storing something that's wet, for instance, if it's not treated with due care. So what was the status of the clothing when it wound up at this laboratory out in California for the veterinarian people to take a look at? And the fact that I'm sure that this UC Davis is a fun place, and you're telling me that you had to send it all the way out there, that this could not have been walked through someplace in the Northeast that could have facilitated this for you. I don't understand that necessarily. And procedurally, I don't know what they did with it, how they went about the testing.
Right.
So I would, if I were a defense attorney and I were to be, presented with that, that's something I would probe extensively on the stand with certainly the police officer that collected it, the custodian of evidence, and then if they call in this person to testify in this case, I'd be fascinated to hear what they would have to say about the condition of the garment when they received it and exactly what kind of testing they did.
Right. We expect that they're going to come in and say there was no canine DNA found on the clothing, but the family German Shepherd that they had had for 7 years was mysteriously rehomed right around the time that people were testifying in front of the state grand jury, which they eventually upgraded the charges to murder in the second degree for Karen Reed after she was originally arraigned on vehicular manslaughter charges. So there's a lot of just very curious events that occurred during this time period.
Very curious events. Yes, Melanie, they're very curious. I would absolutely agree.
What they also did not do is take tissue samples from the arm. So no tissue samples could be tested by the defense to indicate what caused those injuries to his arm. Because when I look at those injuries, I see something that looks like an attack. Maybe you could explain to the viewers what the difference is between an abrasion and a laceration, because while it seems basic to us, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone when I read.
So this is the part that I think goes along great with what we just watched on the canine trainer. So the canine trainer was talking about the lacerations versus the abrasions versus the punctures, and so he kind of goes into what the difference is and how to kind of tell the difference. Yes, Phoebe, so they said that's why she was rehomed, but then they say that she's never attacked anybody. So another point of contention.
This report.
That's okay. Let's talk about a laceration first off. Everybody that's kind of watching this right now, take your fingers like this and put them together. Not like you're praying, but just together like this so that your fingers are kind of bound, okay? And then slowly pull your fingers apart until they're in this position. This is representative, and this is something I do with my classes, that is referred to as tissue bridging. Now, what separates a laceration from a cut, okay, if we have a knife with a milled edge, what separates a laceration from a cut is that it's blunt force driven. So that means that if it's a hammer, if it's a car, if it's a rock, as that surface is impacted by that object, the skin literally tears. So you're not going to have uniformity to it. And with the tissue bridging, you'll still have little strands of connective tissue that are there because it doesn't do the job that, say, a butcher knife or steak knife would do if you're thinking about wielding it over a steak or a piece of chicken that you're eating or whatever. It's going to leave these connected strands. And also, and probably most of the people in the audience have had a laceration at some point in time. If you've got kids, you've certainly dealt with lacerations because they crack their heads open and that sort of thing. And the scars or the injuries look very jagged. And a lot of that goes to the position of them. Our body has, we surgeons operate on something basis, the topography of the body called the lines of Langer. And if you don't follow those lines when you make an incision, you get these really nasty scars. And so crime science doesn't work that way. It's not a uniform event, so you get these really nasty events that occur. And with lacerations, even more so. So you have these real jagged kind of interesting injuries that you have. And the other thing that you'll see with a laceration, such as what we're talking about with the back of the head, if the person survives, you'll have
okay, this is nothing to do with this video. Well, kind of to do with the video, but Robin's distracted because she can't tell if Melanie has on 2 earrings, and now I'm over here trying to figure out if Melanie has on 2 earrings. Yeah, look, the whole chat is too. Unsafe bots is now we all need to know if Melanie has on 2 earrings.
You'll have what's referred to as fancy $10 word that doctors like to use. It means bruise, but ecchymosis is what they'll refer to it as, a contusion, ecchymosis, and you'll get associated swelling around that area. And that, again, it goes to that blunt force trauma that takes place where something slams into it, or if you're knocked backwards and your head hits an object, the skin is going to respond. And again, that means that this is an antemortem injury. If there's ecchymosis.
Hold on. Now we can't even take this. I can't even listen to what he's saying because I'm so focused on this. This is the hearing device, but this right here is an earring. It's like it's got like a little thing. This part right here, this whole thing, that's an earring. This back here is the hearing piece. You can see that she's got that up, but that's not the same thing. This is an earring. It's inside of her ear. You can see the little hooky. But I can't see another one over here. So does she have like a fancy thing that goes over her hearing thing? No, she doesn't. Didn't want to derail the whole chat again. That's okay. Robin took care of it. She handled it. Yeah, I know. One time she had on 2 different ones. I want her to move her head so bad. I know. Like, we can't even listen to what Joe Scott Morgan's. Somebody get Melanie Little on the phone. Find out if she actually has on 2 earrings. Something to keep me awake tonight. Yeah, we're all gonna be focused on, like, every time she goes live, we're gonna be like, okay, where's your other earring? Where do you know him from, Travis? He is a guest on Nancy Grace a lot. He has his own podcast called Body Bags, and he does a lot of appearances, like on Law and Crime, Court TV, multiple different cases. He's a death investigator, has been a death investigator for many, many years. So you've probably seen him all over the place. He's pretty well known. My Nancy Disgrace, my arch nemesis.
As opposed to something that occurred after death. So you have this event that goes on where you have swelling that goes on and this sort of thing. And that's, that's kind of fascinating. Now with abrasions, abrasion can follow or precede a laceration. And abrasions, very simply put, are generated by friction on the skin. So if you have, again, back to the example of a hammer, baseball bat, or car bumper, it doesn't matter. You can get an overlying abraded area where you get this kind of rubbing that goes on. And if there is not sufficient energy to break the skin even further, then you're not going to have a laceration. But you'll see the epidermis and the dermis, which is the layer just below it. You'll see it kind of peeled back and abraded. It'll have little features in it where the substrate is kind of torn in there, but it's not enough to get down into like the subcu fat. So that goes into the entire assessment. An autopsy like this, such as with Officer O'Keefe, should take a protracted period of time to go over all of these injuries. When you're considering, first off, you don't know, and we talked about this a little bit, Melanie, how you're going to classify it. And the forensic pathologist had a hard time, I think, initially, trying to make a classification. I think they initially ruled this case as undetermined.
It still is. The death certificate says undetermined. Yeah. And
so just because the ME calls it undetermined doesn't necessarily mean that the prosecutor is going to fall in line with that. Mm-hmm. And what that says on the medical legal part, I'm just strictly talking about the medical examiner here. Please do not misconstrue what I'm saying. The medical examiner has not been provided with enough circumstantial evidence for them in good faith to make a judgment that they're going to straight up call this a homicide. Now, when that individual gets on the stand, they're going to be asked questions like, well, doctor, in your experience, this kind of case, have you ever ruled a case with injuries like this as a homicide? Well, yeah, I have. Well, why didn't you rule this as a homicide? I don't have enough information that's being provided to me investigatively to make that next intellectual leap. Mm-hmm. That's what they're going to, that's the track they're going to take with this person. I don't know how much damage that's going to do to the case, or how much aid it's going to offer the defense.
The prosecution wants that redacted. They don't want the jury to see that it was an undetermined cause of death, so they don't want that, or manner of death, right? Manner of death.
Manner of death. Yeah, there's five manners. Yeah.
Right. I know this. Wait, homicide, suicide, accidental, natural, undetermined.
There you go.
Pretty good, right?
I'm impressed down to my core.
Oh, thank you. How long would you expect an autopsy report of this nature to be? How many pages? Just
depends on how. A lot of it depends on how anal retentive the forensic pathologist is. Some of them go into a very exacting detail, down to a microscopic level many times. Sometimes I think all of us have looked at reports over the course of our life where, we'll say, couldn't you?
I should have timestamped it. But let me see if I can find real quick.
But there are other pages that's really, really long.
Where he talks about the dying in the cold and what he thinks about the photos. Okay, so it is determined at this point, just an FYI, so we can all move on from it. She must have put on one earring to cover the earpiece, but she does not have another earring on because it would be right here. We would be able to see it in the hair, and she does not have another earring on. So I've investigated. She's only wearing one, most likely to cover up the earpiece, so that she doesn't just have some weird squiggly cord coming down. So I now officially, as a true crime creator, can say that I have solved cases. Just saying. Just saying. So I want to get to the part where they talk about, let me see if I can find it, based on when she shows them the photos. Oh no, I don't think she actually shows the photos. She just tells him about the photos there. So let me see if I can do it. I did. I solved another one. I'm gonna take a poll. The earring I am now the earring investigation expert. I have figured it all out. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
Depending upon what the assessment is of these injuries, if they're kind of vacillating between laceration and abrasion, the top.
They talk about lacerations versus abrasions for a very long time. I think it was seasonal. I kept thinking I saw something there. I was measuring it. I was like, okay, here we go. The earring would be here. But I want to listen to him talk about essentially
as a result of that you're not necessarily going to see externally.
Muscles and mascara. It's so good to see you. I missed you. We need a certificate. Yes, let's get one. Let's get a certificate. We're crime solvers over here, or earring solvers, whatever the hell you would want to call it. Earring investigations. So he essentially, what I took away from this was that he actually is saying that John O'Keefe was alive, that they were transporting him because you know the old thing is that if you see somebody put into an ambulance, it's because they're alive and they have hope of resuscitating them. And they have to get him to a stable condition before they can even put him in the ambulance. So that's also very weird too. So that he's put in the ambulance, he's taken to the hospital. So Joseph Scott Morgan is essentially saying, no, he was alive and they were trying to save him and they just couldn't. Otherwise, he would have been, if he was declared dead at the scene, he would have been taken away, by the coroner, right? By the medical examiner. Now, this is the crazy part for me because, like I was telling you guys earlier, I have always been told, like, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. So I don't know. This is a big one for me, but I want to try to see if I can find the spot really quick so that you guys can hear it for yourself. And then I'm going to move on to another one, a different topic.
And look, I've been out on scenes. I've had to mark evidence with a cup before, a
Right.
coffee cup, perhaps.
This might be where
that vessel had come in contact with prior to that. Somebody's saliva. I can't attest to the provenance of that cup. No
Right.
one can.
Right.
And I think that you would be a fool for using it because you're opening up Pandora's box. So let's just say that this is pedestrian versus motor vehicle. You're collecting evidence, blood evidence, biological evidence, and you're using something that is not what is up to put it in this standard. It's not up to industry standard. And it won't hold up on the stand. So, the defense can look at this and say, well, and they'll have the person on the stand that used the cup to collect it. And the person on the stand is going to say something like, well, time was of the essence, and we had to collect this as soon as we could because we were afraid of losing it.
Right.
So you don't have an evidence technician that has a properly.
This is them talking about the red Solo cup. So I stopped it here just so you guys could hear what he had to say about the evidence collection. Unsafe. I don't. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's something that's a procedural thing or like different things in different places. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's just I can only tell you like what I have just in my brain think I've known for a long time, and maybe it was just always wrong. So I was always under the impression that if they thought they were saving you, but like Lone Pony just said, if you're active CPR, they take you. I don't know.
Evidence van that's going to come out, and a person that has been trained, hopefully by the state of Massachusetts, to do this. I mean, there's training available everywhere. We know what the standards are. Why are you not doing it in this manner? Why are you relying on solo cups?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, and look, I've been out on scenes. I've had to mark evidence with a cup before, a
Right.
coffee cup perhaps, but I wasn't recovering evidence with a coffee cup. I was merely marking it. It might be numbered. I've been out on scenes before where we had so many spent projectiles, we ran out of the little yellow tents. We had to resort to cups.
Wow.
And so, but I'm not collecting those items. And
Right.
the fact that they would do that, you can't testify to how intact that thing was or how free that it may have been of any other kind of contamination. It's very foolhardy.
Yeah. Another question that I have for you is, I found it odd, having litigated many, many cases in my life with, in my career with medical records and experts on the stand, and that the medical examiner wrote in the autopsy report that she saw no signs of a physical altercation or fight. I don't know why that would be in the report to say what did not happen.
Well, I think we know why it was in the report, because Sergeant Yuri over there went and said that they were investigating it as a domestic violence. So to me, that makes it seem like that would be in the report, because she's saying, no, I don't see that this was domestic violence.
What I also do not see in the report, or they've never mentioned in the report, is that these injuries are consistent with a pedestrian versus car motor vehicle accident. So I'm just wondering if it is standard procedure to put a sentence in like that. She observed no signs of an altercation.
It would need, I think that if you were to make a statement like that, you would also need to make, you would have to have kind of maybe a preamble to that, to say that according to the police.
The blood drops in the red Solo cups was how they collected the evidence from the crime scene. They went and got red Solo cups from the neighbors and put the droplets of blood in there with the snow. I think so. That's what I think. And I think that's why it says there was no fight, because that's like the medical examiners, use like the extenuating circumstances and part of the investigation to typically make their determination. But that's not what she saw. She didn't see any fight.
There was an altercation. Okay, and generally when you read, what's going to be the tail of the tape here is when you read this autopsy report, it's going to have a very large paragraph, an opening paragraph, before they get into the report proper. It's going to talk about who attended the autopsy, and
well, let me ask you that too, because two of the state troopers were in the room while the autopsy was performed. So that is, I would say, common, or is it not common?
Yeah, well, hopefully it is.
Okay.
We try to encourage all law enforcement personnel that are involved in the case to come to the autopsy, because they have a different perspective that no one else will have. But that should not, their presence or absence should not dictate the crafting of a report. Bottom line is, you as a forensic scientist, you are to remain as objective as possible. And this applies certainly to, I think, at least in my field, the medical legal field, much more than any other. Okay, because you might have a criminalist that works for the state police. They work in the state crime lab. Medical examiner is an independent investigative agency. They're completely separate. Their investigators are separate. The pathologists are separate. They're not administrated by the state police. So they bring an objectivity to the case. And again, you guys probably don't want to hear this, but I'll go ahead and say it. I'm not a big fan of state medical examiners' offices being administered by the state police.
Right.
Those two things need to be separate. You go to New Mexico, Oklahoma.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead
They're
because I think
administrated by
this
the
is
state
probably
health
right about
department.
where
Because
he
most of the
starts
deaths we deal
looking
with.
at the photos that she
Blood
sent
on the
him.
pillow behind him. I was confused about that as well.
Yeah, that could.
The photos I just showed on the stream.
I've seen people that are covered in blood that I've interviewed, at a scene when they were the first person to kind of arrive
Right.
at the scene of the event. So yeah, I think that would be easily explained.
This whole interview is very, very well done. I just don't want to play, what an hour and 46 minutes of her video. You guys go, if you want to watch the full thing. I mean, it's very informative anyway. There was a couple parts that I just wanted to highlight.
But does it mean that he was actively bleeding?
Right.
Because to have blood pressed out of your body
Mhm.
is by a mechanical action,
Right.
chest compression. It's completely different than him spontaneous or not spontaneously, but him bleeding as a result of an insult to his head.
When I look at that, if you're on the autopsy photos again, the one on the upper right, I mean, it looks like fresh blood on the pillow behind him. I was confused about that as well.
Yeah, that can be accounted for relative to seepage. And it looks like he's been rolled over. We're visualizing this from the rear posteriorly.
Okay, so just a trigger warning real quick. I'll put the photos back up so we can kind of see what they're looking at. I'll just make it smaller so you can still hear what he's saying. Oh, shit. Maybe I will.
Which we have this image with a scale in it that gives us an indication that what they call this, Melanie? They say it was a 2 centimeter,
They
2
said
centimeter
2 inch, I thought they said.
laceration, or
Let's see.
2 inch.
7 right superior orbital ridge region. No, that's on the face, right?
Yeah, so
7
this should be
millimeter
right
laceration.
parietal or right occipital. I think looking at this, I am happy to see that they shaved the wound. Sometimes these people will do an autopsy without shaving the wound. You can see that there's ecchymosis with this laceration on the back of the head. That means that it's swollen.
Yeah.
If this had been a postmortem event, you wouldn't see that. And the blood that you're seeing, that drainage that you're seeing down there, that can be seepage from the insult on the back of his head. It's gravitationally dependent. The head's really congested, so it'll be pulled out through there. Or it could be where they're manipulating the body back and forth. I don't mean manipulating in a negative connotation. You have to move bodies back and forth. So if you still have residual blood in the airway, in the mouth and nose, you'll see it kind of seep out like that. It can get smeared around.
They're calling that a 2-inch laceration to the back right of his head, multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. The fact that the pancreas was a dark red color, that indicates hypothermia too, but there are a lot of people who are saying, also it says here, as evidenced by hemorrhaging in his pancreas and stomach. Is that something that's caused by blunt force trauma, such as being hit by a car?
Yeah, you could sustain any of the internal viscera. You can sustain these hemorrhagic events. What they would have done, though, is that they're not simply basing this upon their assessment grossly, as I'd mentioned earlier, where they're just looking at the body with the unaided eye. They're doing that histologically. They would have taken sections of the pancreas, put it on slide, taken a look at it, and the forensic pathologist can make that assessment, that diagnosis, microscopically, and see what's going on at a cellular level. And there are changes that they appreciate relative to hypothermia. And the interesting thing about hypothermia hypothermia, forgive me, and hyperthermia is that many times those are diagnoses of exclusion. Many times you won't see evidence of it. It's more of a circumstantial kind of diagnosis. You're not going to see evidences in every single case. And sometimes the forensic pathologist will say, well, he's out there and he's alive and he was exposed to these temperatures. I don't really have enough to hang my hat on, but we'll go ahead and call it hypothermia. But that pancreatic response is something that I have, noted in the past in regards to cases with exposure to extreme cold.
How long does it take for hypothermia to set in?
You can begin it deep, and again, it's environmentally dependent upon. A lot of it's dependent upon how cold it is and the individual's clothing as well. How layered are they? Because as you start to bleed off energy, when the shivering starts, like this, that's your body working to try to warm yourself up, but you're also burning energy and you're getting colder and colder. And I know it sounds like, daddy preaching to a kid, put a hat on when you go outside or put your gloves on, but there's a lot of truth in what mom says. When you're little, you're going to lose.
So this is an interesting comment, Nancy, too, because he does. So he has vomit on him, on his clothing and mostly his boxers. But if he is knocked out after this head injury and that's what causes the vomiting, then the direction of the vomit shouldn't be down to his boxers. Yeah, Jen should have the answer. She'll know. She Googled it. That's pretty scary stuff. I wouldn't want to do it.
Body heat very, very quickly. And so if you're not layered up in this kind of environment, it's going to set in really quick. You'll begin to see the first signs of this within about 45 minutes. And it's a slow, agonizing death. What happens is the individual eventually, I've had cases where I've had people that have become delusional almost. They'll be talking out of their head. You can have this undressing. It's called paradoxical undressing, which is fascinating, where people that are suffering from hypothermia will begin to take what clothes they have off.
Shannon
And
Gilbert.
yeah, and so you get these bizarre events that happen. And then eventually the individuals will slip off into a coma and eventually die. It's very unpleasant. It's a torturous kind of event.
Oh, that's horrible. Do you know who
Yeah, it is.
Dr. Frank Sheridan is? Ring a bell?
Name sounds familiar.
So he's the chief medical examiner for San Bernardino County, and he's the forensic pathologist that's been hired by the defense. And I just want to, for clarity, read in his opinion, which is that he opines to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's right upper arm, right elbow, and right forearm are not consistent with being struck by a motor vehicle, but are consistent with animal claw or scratch marks.
Mm-hmm.
Notably, as detailed in Fire. And then they go on to say that again, the Albert German Shepherd was rehomed and had attacked other individuals, as in addition to, they say, attacking officers.
Well, I hope that I think that's all fine and good that they have this individual. I'm hoping that they're going to have, if this is the direction they're going to go in, I'm hoping that they're going to have a vet that will testify as well. There are a number of forensic veterinarian practices that are out there. Even the U.S. government has one. I think it's located. There's a wildlife. See if I can get this. Maybe somebody in the audience will know this. There's a wildlife forensic lab that's located, I think, in Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. And I've even had veterinarians that want to come and take classes at my university, just to learn more. There are a couple of veterinarians out there, believe it or not, where they still have elected coroners, where they are coroners in a particular jurisdiction. Yeah, there are even dentists that are out there that are elected coroners.
I know. We learned about that, and I think it was Murdoch, right? That the coroner is elected, and I think if it's Murdoch, I'm not sure, but I think that the coroner, in whatever case I'm thinking of, was actually a funeral director. And so
yeah, that happens a lot. And in Massachusetts, this is kind of one of the areas I study. And if you're in academia, you got to study something. So I study the coroners.
I apologize. I should have timestamped this.
South Carolina has elected coroners, and they can't simply become a coroner without some level of education.
Either way.
So now they require them to have an associate's.
I would love for you to come back.
Either way, you guys should go and watch this, and then you'll get the full thing. I know that the mods have dropped Melanie's channel. It's just Melanie Little. But it's absolutely worth it. And her coverage in general, I just enjoy. Attorney Melanie Little. I'll drop it real quick now that I have it right here. This is for this particular video. But obviously you can get to her channel from there. So, I don't know. Like I said, I was always under the impression you had to be warm and dead. Otherwise you weren't dead. He says, no, not necessarily true. He makes it seem like they were probably working on him to save him. Hence the intubation, and hence the neck brace, and then going through life-saving measures at that point. So let me see what the next one I wanted to talk to you guys about was before we wrap up. I think it's down here actually. This is a good one. Let's do this one.
Save his life.
She's got a lot of support out there. The defense is going to.
So this is just talking about some of the motions and things that are happening this last week, heading into trial, and just updates on, a couple experts on here that have some interesting things to say. So I thought I'd share this one with you guys. And then before we wrap up, I want to talk about, people had asked me before, who is Turtle Boy? What is a Turtle Boy? And what does that mean? So we'll finish off on that, because like I said, I'm not going to get too far into him in particular, but I just want to show you guys where to find the information and just a little bit about the history of that. So, but let's listen to this one first.
To lean on forensic experts to try and show that O'Keefe's injuries were from a beating and a dog bite. You can see the injuries there. The defense is also saying that one of those female acquaintances who went with Reed to look for O'Keefe was in on the cover-up. They say the woman Google searched the phrase, "how long to die in the cold," just hours before the body was found. So, you've got a damning Google search on one side. There's also damning comments, texts, and a voicemail on the other side. Not long after dropping O'Keefe off, Reed sent him a voicemail saying, "You're an effing loser, F yourself, I hate you." First responders claim Reed said, I hit him. She says they're missing critical context.
The firefighter said that you said, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. What I thought could have happened was that, did I incapacitate him unwittingly, somehow, and then in his drunkenness, passed out?
Is it possible that you might have hit him unwittingly in your admittedly very large SUV?
No, not possible.
That's Matt Gutman from ABC there. But prosecutors plan to call as many as 87 witnesses. 23 members of law enforcement are on the list. The defense submitted 77 potential witnesses. Back with me, Geraldo Rivera, Jesse Weber, and Misty Maris. Jesse,
okay, I haven't seen Geraldo for a really long time. Is that guy like, is he still actively doing anything? Or do they just randomly pull him into this to have commentary? I didn't even know he was like still around doing anything.
this is a case that's really divided Boston. Do you think that those supporting Karen Reed are giving the defense too much credit here, or you think they got a real reasonable doubt argument?
I mean, the defense has presented a lot so far without even an opening statement. You know, they've had a lot of pretrial motions. There's an investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office into what happened here. I'll tell you, I am curious if this divide that you're seeing in the public will be kind of a microcosm of what the jury will be. Will they have that kind of divide? You asked me if there's a cover-up. Feels like a big pill to swallow, but then you kind of read through the tea leaves and you try to see a little bit more. There's an explanation for each one of these bad pieces of evidence. Then on the other side is it has to be a cover-up by EMTs, law enforcement, all at the behest of people to protect that part.
Would it have to have been multiple people involved in the cover-up?
Well, just to add to this, so the broken taillight,
yeah,
you would have to assume that someone got that taillight and then planted it on his body. That's a little tough sell.
Yeah, I think a conspiracy and a cover-up, that's hard to sell to a jury. It's very complicated. And right now we know some of the evidence that's going to come in. There's significant evidence about an acrimonious relationship between her and the victim. And I don't know, I think a jury's more likely to go for that more simple explanation.
But a retired DEA special agent was on Banfield this week, and he believes that there is no way that Karen Reed's taillight could have shattered at the scene as prosecutors are insisting. Let's listen.
Now, this interview with this guy is from a different stream of theirs, but they're playing it. But it's also a very good one to listen to because he makes some very good points about this taillight and how this taillight could not be Karen Reed's or could not be from Karen Reed hitting him.
I went to Lexus dealerships. They told me not only do they have, it's a polycarbonate plastic, one of the hardest plastics you can have. The law of physics, what? There you go, right there. See all.
They say the woman
oh,
Google
shit.
searched the phrase.
What the hell?
Not long after F yourself.
Firefighter said
proceeded
at you.
What the heck?
With me, Geraldo Rivera, Jesse Weber are giving the defense.
If this divide that you're seeing in the public will be kind of a microcosm of what the jury will be. Will they have that kind of divide? You asked me if there's a cover-up. Feels like a big pill.
Here. I wanted to
Lexus dealerships.
And I hit the wrong thing. So here's the photo. I was showing you guys on the 8-hour stream, if you guys did watch it, the one that doesn't have anything, because when the defense went to examine it and look at the recreation, that they'd already removed all these little pieces. All this had already come out, and so it was just blank. So they couldn't even, the reconstructionists couldn't even look at the car and get an idea of it. But this is the photo that I was looking for that I could not find during that live stream. And it's what the picture is of what the broken taillight looks like. Hey, party. Hi, T. Heard someone say today on another channel there were 20 cars in a department that usually have few, and the thought was the police are preparing for the trial. Oh, maybe. They probably are. They're probably making sure that they're all prepped and ready to go. Yeah, should have asked you. You left and went to Walmart and never came back. I tried to ask you. You were gone. You bounced. I think you went to bed.
They told me not only do they have, it's a polycarbonate plastic, one of the hardest plastics you can have. The law of physics, what? There you go, right there. See all that red? In the final picture where the prosecutors are saying this is how it ends up. It's no way. So polycarbonate plastic, very hard. 6,500 pounds going into a 220-pound male human will topple him over. It will not crack up the taillight in 37 plus pieces.
Geraldo, reasonable doubt?
I think so, and I don't know how in the hell you're going to prove it. One way or the other. I know we only want the jury's only go one way, but it's baffling to me. I would focus on the email. How long to live in the snow and the cold? What's that about?
Okay, so to touch on this, so Scotty says, question, did they check the parking lot next to John's car for the taillight? So the theory of this is that she cracks the taillight, that she's talking about it that morning that she cracked her taillight because she hit the car and cracked her taillight. That they take this taillight and take the cracks of it and they bust it, and this is what they plant, is to show that yes, she did hit she hit him with this part of her car. There's a problem with this though, is because initially they were trying to say that she did a 3-point turn to leave, and if she had done a 3-point turn, she would have quote unquote hit him with the left side of the car. So it would have been the left tail light. So then the story changed to that she pulled up further in front of the neighbor's house and then went 24 miles an hour and backed into him that way. So that way the right tail light would be the one that was messed up. So curious if there were footprints in the snow and from which direction, if any. Well, so I don't know if they would be able to tell because they were all preparing for this giant snowstorm. It was supposed to be like the 7th biggest snowstorm in history. It was coming the next day. It was coming on the 29th, and they were all preparing for it. So it started to snow. It wasn't super heavy snow that night. It was just the storm was coming through. So I don't know, because it had snowed from the time she dropped off John O'Keefe to the time that they went back, and plus now all their footprints are in the snow. I don't know if they would have been able to really figure it out. Maybe coming from the house. I don't know. Yeah, but you could clearly see the car move, but did she hit it hard enough to even make that happen? That damage to the car, I don't think could have happened from hitting his car either.
Is it more like the Kansas City case where they're searching for the innocents wandering in the storm? I think this is a very tough case. I can't see how you get a conviction out of this based on this evidence. And a cop next door, cops and.
But
how often do you
the
get
only
cops
issue is
testifying
that
against
once
a
you
cop?
start claiming that there was a frame job, right, you're kind of forcing the defense to have a burden, right?
Right.
Even if it's not legally a burden, but practically the jurors are going to say, have they proven this or not?
It's interesting you say that because they said we're going forward with this third-party culprit defense. It's not our burden to tell you who it was.
Right.
But we're kind of telling you who it was.
But I do think that they add a burden to themselves. Anyway, everyone's going to stick around. Still ahead, the trial and thank you for watching. Go to News Nation.
Okay, so that was just an interesting little clip, and then I'm going to play one more about just the hearing. The last hearing and the updates on
false narrative in Dead O'Keefe, a Boston police officer, really an amazing guy. I haven't heard anything negative said about him. There was tragedy in his family. He ended up taking in his sister's children and were raising them, and then he died. She's accused of hitting him with her car, leaving him to die in the cold. She says she's being framed by.
What makes 15 plus people let a man die this way and proceed to keep their mouth shut? Well, I think that I don't think there's that many people who let him die. I think you're looking at a handful of people who let him die. If you go with that side, if you go with the defense theory, there's a handful of people who let him die. When you get more into the cover-up of it, you have the multiple police officers and the family members that are now in on the conspiracy and the cover-up, not necessarily letting him die. So. Steven, you have me hanging on the edge of my seat with this. It's a good one. I'm telling you, the trial starts. Thank gosh. Check DM. Thank you. Okay. Well, the bumper sticks out the furthest. So why isn't there any damage to the damn bumper?
Police in this case. Karen Reed was back in court today. It was another big day.
That's what I
get
think.
Ready for Monday. Some key rulings today. Number one, evidence of Karen Reed's blood alcohol level is admissible.
So this is the last motions hearing. So after they seated the jury of 19, it'll be 12 on the jury, and then the 7 alternates, which I'm not sure how many will last. They had this huge motions hearing. Shit, when was it? Thursday? I don't even remember. Was it Thursday? Friday? Might have been Friday. I don't even remember when it was. Thursday, I think. And so he's talking about what happened with the motions hearings.
The defense can voir dire the witness. Evidence of a failing relationship between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe is admissible. All good for the prosecution. Evidence of Karen Reed's out-of-court statements to police and paramedics and news media are admissible. Prosecutors believe that is good for them. Take a listen. Karen Reed's father spoke today. Let's take a listen.
Absolutely confident. Truth will come out, right? The truth will prevail.
What has this process been like for your family?
It's been hell. It's been 26, 27 months of hell. Firmly supportive of my loving daughter. She's factually innocent. The breakdown in law enforcement, and I use that word breakdown very lightly. You can extend it from that if you like, but the truth is the truth. And you've heard glimpses of what we've learned in that courtroom, and you'll hear more as this trial gets underway. So,
you think your daughter will get a fair trial, Mr. Reed?
I absolutely do. If you've been living on this planet for the last 27, 28 months, it's difficult to not be aware of what has happened here. My daughter is factually innocent. She's being framed. Have a good day, everybody.
Opening statements begin Monday. Let's take a listen. You saw Matt Johnson there doing that interview. Here he is breaking down some of the key evidence in the case.
Does this look like a road rash? John O'Keefe's injuries will be a point of contention. Prosecutors argue they were caused in part when Karen Reed allegedly mowed him down with her car in a fit of drunken rage. The defense contends the injuries are more consistent with a canine attack, possibly a German Shepherd owned by the Alberts. O'Keefe was invited to a party at their home on January 29, 2022. That's when the defense says O'Keefe was attacked and left for dead outside in the snow. How could they reasonably ignore two black eyes? It looked like he had gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. Of course there were signs of a fight. Not just a fight, a brutal fight. What does a German Shepherd do when its owner is in a fight? Reaches out and attacks.
There was no fight. There was no dog attack. There was no eyewitness to the circumstances that led to Mr. O'Keefe's death.
To support its claim that O'Keefe was attacked and left to die in the lawn, a Google search by Jennifer McCabe will be a key piece of evidence, each side giving a different reason for that search. The defense claims that Jennifer McCabe, a relative of the Alberts who owned this home and was at the party that night, Googled a misspelled "how long to die in the cold" at around 2:27 in the morning. That's 3.5 hours before Karen Reed dials 911, saying that John O'Keefe's body is found here in the front yard. According to prosecutors, McCabe Googled the question because Reed asked her to, after O'Keefe's body was found around 6 a.m.
Mr. O'Keefe's DNA was on the taillight. The same taillight was broken when the defendant struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Prosecutors
So he
contend
said
Reed broke the
that his DNA was found on the taillight. Now, I wondered about this, and somebody who knows more than me, hopefully you guys will know, because for me, he's trying to say that I think he's saying that that's the hair, not actual DNA. Does anybody know what DNA he's referring to?
taillight of her car when she backed over him. They claim her broken taillight and microscopic pieces of plastic in O'Keefe's clothing is proof she hit him. But the defense points to this video to argue the taillight broke when she backed out of O'Keefe's driveway and into his car. In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car. Reed's defense team raises the possibility that other suspects at the party killed O'Keefe, but prosecutors contend Karen Reed is the only one who had a motive.
You also have statements from the children which indicate that the victim had tried to break up with the defendant multiple times in front of them, asked her to leave the home, and she refused.
All right, opening statements. Monday, let's bring in our think tank, Eckler Mercy, Judge Gail Byers, Philip Dubé. Judge, I think both sides here have an uphill battle in proving what they believe happened here. I mean, murder. Let's start with murder. Like you're going to commit a murder on the front lawn of a home.
I don't know
if
her car has officers,
right? And then on the other hand, like how in the world would the people?
So, yeah, hair is all I've heard. So that's what I was like. He's saying DNA was found on the taillight. But I've only, I don't, the only thing I know of is this hair that was actually in the back quarter, like the quarter panel of the car. And if she backed over him, there should be DNA like on the car. I don't know. So, like I said, once again, I'm trying to, that one of the reasons I'm happy that we're about to hear all this evidence coming up very soon.
In the house, if they're going to try to frame Karen Reed, how would they know that the next morning she's going to back into a car and break her tail light? These two things, I think both sides have some issues here.
I'll tell you, Vinny, I'm just surprised they were able to actually pick a jury, because you're absolutely right. There are so many competing facts or allegations on both sides that this is going to be a very spirited, as you can see from the pretrial motions, it's going to be a very spirited.
Yeah, so the lab was testing it for mitochondrial DNA. Yes, but what I'm saying is that he said, I don't know if I can back it up to the right spot or not. Let me see if I can. He said that it was found on the taillight. Let me see. I think it's right here.
DNA was on the taillight.
DNA was on the taillight. Okay, the hair wasn't on the taillight. The hair is on in the back quarter panel of the car. He lies, though, and exaggerates. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know where they're saying I don't remember reading a document, and I'm hoping that somebody else may remember or hearing it in a hearing where they talk about the DNA being found on the taillight. Not the hair, because the hair can't be, that they're saying that's a different part. I don't know. So I'm looking for clarification for myself so that I don't put out info that is wrong. They're looking for the mitochondrial DNA in the hair. So I never heard that, and so I just want to make sure, like, I'm not saying that there's no DNA, and then, you know, Lolly's on here saying, no, there was his DNA, or is he talking about the hair and just calling it the taillight?
The same taillight that was broken when the defendant struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Prosecutors contend Reed broke the taillight of her car when she backed over him. They claim her broken taillight and microscopic pieces of plastic in O'Keefe's clothing is proof she hit him. But the defense points to this video to argue the taillight broke when she backed out of O'Keefe's driveway and into his car.
In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car.
Reed's defense team raises the possibility that other suspects at the party killed O'Keefe, but prosecutors contend Karen Reed is the only one who had a motive.
You also have statements from the children which indicate that the victim had tried to break up with the defendant multiple times in front of them, asked her to leave the home, and she refused.
All right, opening statements. Monday, let's bring in our think tank at Glen Mercy, Judge Gail Byers, Philip Dubé. Judge, I think both sides here have an uphill battle in proving what they believe happened here. I mean, murder. Let's start with murder. Like, you're going to commit a murder on the front lawn of a home that is filled with police officers, right? And then on the other hand, like, how in the world would the people in the house, if they're going to try to frame Karen Reed, how would they know that the next morning she's going to back into a car and break her tail light? These two things, I think both sides have some issues here.
I'll tell you, Vinny, I'm just surprised they were able to actually pick a jury, because you're absolutely right. There are so many competing facts or allegations on both sides that this is going to be a very spirited, as you can see from the pretrial motions, it's going to be a very spirited trial. What's more is Karen Reed has been, you know, masterful in launching a independent PR campaign where her head PR guy is now facing criminal charges himself. So this is a small community. As you said, these facts are not boding well for either side. And quite frankly, that isn't good for the prosecution, because they have
the burden.
Obligation.
They've got the burden. Philip Dubé.
Out of 12, they only need the defense only needs one.
Philip?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I actually think they have a pretty strong case. You know, I think what's really
or the defense?
The prosecution. Okay. I really do. I think what's going to sink her is her mouth. All the statements that she gave and the fact that she was drunk. The thing is, under Massachusetts law, they don't have to prove an actual intent to kill. All they have to prove is that she was under the influence, backed into him, and even if she didn't mean to, the fact that that he was around when he got out of the car suggests that she had a subjective awareness that great bodily injury or death could occur if you just back up suddenly while you're drunk. The law will imply that intent to kill. It's unfortunate, even though she didn't have the actual express malice aforethought. And I think the jury might have to just, you know, throw in the towel and say, look, on these facts and on the law, she's guilty of murder. Now, on the other hand, if the defense can really prove
I gotta hold your other hand. We're out of time. Yeah, I have to hold your other hand.
Okay, so essentially, Ariel said that there was DNA of the pieces of taillight that were actually found at 34 Fairview, not DNA found on the taillight that was left on the car. That's going to be interesting, especially if you go with the whole cover-up side of things. And then it's different than the piece of hair that was found, or hair that's not hair that might be hair. So that's interesting. Okay, so another thing that we got to pay attention to in the trial. Okay, so in here, one of them is talking about that Karen Reed's main PR person is now in trouble on his own. So that takes me into talking. Just want to finish this off. We're talking about Turtle Boy for just a hot minute. I'm not going to go too far into it. That's something you guys will have to research on your own. He is a creator, has a YouTube channel. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, and then I'll get you guys the link to that. He is very controversial in the case, and many people are very supportive of Turtle Boy, and he has an entire group of people who are absolutely backing him, and then he has a lot of opposition. There's channels that are literally out there just to oppose what Turtle Boy has to say. Now, regardless of whether you like Turtle Boy or not, or even know of him, one thing I will say is that he has invested a lot of his time into research. And I do not, in my personal opinion, think that the Karen Reed case would be as publicized as it is without Turtle Boy. I absolutely do think that whatever he has done because it is what he actually believes. Whether he's right or wrong is going to be, I mean, obviously we're going to hear at trial whether he's right or wrong. In doing so, he has really gotten on the radar of the Commonwealth, and he has been arrested for intimidating witnesses, essentially because he says it wasn't him. I think he says it was actually somebody else. So I don't want to go too far into it because I don't follow his cases as much as I follow the Karen Read case. So I don't want to misspeak on him or say something that's incorrect information. But he posted photos of Jennifer McCabe, Carrie Roberts at one of the investigators' houses when they were trying to say like they didn't know each other. Like, and here he says somebody else took the photos, but that, you know, the license plates on the cars belong to, you know, the defense theory's suspects. And now here they are colluding with the investigators to get their story straight. You don't see my air quotes, but that's what I'm saying. Then, you know, he has his own set of issues, and then he's dating a girl who, when things don't really quite work out between the two of them, she befriends Jennifer McCabe and that crew, and then tries to take out a restraining order. I should say, actually takes out a restraining order on him. Now, some people are very pro the girlfriend. Some people are very, you know, say the girlfriend was lying and made all this stuff up. So he actually has not been able to go to the courthouse because she continues to go to the courthouse, and he writes a blog. And this is what he does. I mean, he's a, you know, considers himself an investigative journalist, and he writes a blog, which I'm going to give you that link too. So I put the link in for his channel, and I'll put the link in for his blog. And he is obviously very adamant. He has really started the Free Karen Read movement, if you will. And now he went to get the restraining order amended so that he would be able to go to the court hearings, because she shows up, he has a restraining order, he can't go in. So it's kind of just, it's a giant mess, but there's a lot of contention around him. But like I said, for me, I personally believe, and this is my own opinion, and you know, you're all welcome to your own opinions. I do believe that he is obviously very invested in the case. He's very invested in the outcome of the case. He absolutely believes that Karen Read is innocent. I don't think that's fake or for show. I think that this is something he's now invested his time in, and he definitely gets, you know, everybody has a different line that they think journalists should go to. He has his own line, and some think he crosses theirs, for sure. Other people are very appreciative of what he has done. So I gave you his channel. I gave you his blog. I'm going to show you a little bit of a
might suggest that one of the Alberts are possibly affected.
Levy, and one of his arch nemesises from social media, and you know, he's got a big presence on Twitter. I mean, like I said, he invests a lot of his time into this case. So, yep, Jen, I'm still here, not for much longer, but for just a little bit. So I wanted to show you, he kind of just a little bit about him. And like I said, people were like, what's a turtle boy? His name is Aiden. His name is Aiden Kearney, but because of where he's from, it's like a freaking Alec Murdoch thing. It's Aiden Carney, like how it's pronounced. So it's Aiden Carney is his name, and he goes by Dr. Turtle Boy on Twitter if you want to follow him there. But here he is with Anjanette Levy, and one of his
federal agent named Brian Higgins killed John O'Keefe over the objection of prosecutors.
We do not have to prove
See if I can
that
get
Brian
it
Albert or Colin Albert or Brian Higgins or some combination
I've learned a lot.
intended to kill John O'Keefe. We don't have to prove that any of them attacked John O'Keefe such that he eventually died. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they didn't. But the fact of the matter is, there is evidence that all three of them had a motive, had the opportunity and the means.
Kearney is Carney. It's Kearney. But like I said, I'm not gonna argue. It's like the freaking Murdoch name. That name is Murdoch, and he goes by Murdoch. It is what it is. His name is Aiden Carney.
To attack
John O'Keefe. There have been a number of theories of speculation, rank speculation, opinions without any evidentiary support, names of certain people that have been dropped at this microphone by counsel at different pretrial hearings who are not witnesses, who have nothing to do with this case.
The attorneys do not like each other.
Case has been on YouTube
Let's
and
just
social
put that
media.
out
There
there.
are still people who are on the fence, like Brandy Churchwell. She's the host of the 13th Juror podcast.
You know, I think some of the biggest issues that I've seen are the investigation itself, because there seems to be
Won some awards. He's award winning. And we also have Grant Ellis. He's a law student who believes the evidence points to Karen Reed's guilt. So thanks both of you for joining me. I want to start with you, Aiden. You've been following this from the very beginning and you believe that Karen Reed is innocent. Why?
The autopsy photos are inconsistent, and the FBI agrees that with somebody who's been run over by a car. John O'Keefe was not run over by a car. He had no broken bones. He had no bruises anywhere from the nose down. He had a 3-inch laceration in the back of his head. He has dog bites, what are clearly dog bites, on his right arm exclusively. There's 2 witnesses, Lucky Loughran, the plow driver, who drove by the scene at 2:30 at 34 Fairview Road and reported that not only did he not see a body 12 feet from the curb, that if there was a body there, he most definitely would have seen a body there. Ryan Nagel, also, who was directly behind Karen Reed when she pulled up to 34 Fairview Road, reported that John O'Keefe was not inside the car and John O'Keefe was not outside the car, and that Karen Reed's taillight was in perfectly pristine condition. So if John O'Keefe is not inside the car and John O'Keefe is not outside the car, then John O'Keefe certainly must have been inside the house. This is backed up by the fact that Apple Health data shows John ascending and descending 3 flights of stairs between 12:21 and 12:24, which Karen Reed's phone does not, indicating that they were not in the same place because Karen Reed does not have steps inside of her car. Additionally, of course, Jennifer McCabe undoubtedly was inside the house and is the sister-in-law of Brian Albert, the homeowner, undoubtedly, and the FBI investigation confirms this, Googled how long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. A Google search that she then subsequently deleted before handing over her phone to police. She also deleted all of her calls between 5 and 9 a.m., including 2 very incriminating calls to her sister, Nicole Albert, at 6:07 and 6:08 that lasted durations of 9 and 7 seconds, which she deleted from her phone, which is extremely suspicious and evidence of consciousness of guilt.
Okay, so there was a lot there, but I do want to say we don't know exactly what the FBI expert said. We know what the defense says the FBI expert said about the injuries and whether or not they were consistent or inconsistent with being hit by an SUV. I want to turn to Grant now. Grant, why do you believe the evidence points to Karen Reed being guilty?
I almost feel like Grant only thinks that Karen Reed is guilty because he hates Turtle Boy so much. But that's my opinion.
Well, I think there's really 2 important views on the evidence related to Karen Reed's guilt. The first is what is not true about what Aiden was just talking about. So let's take it one by one. And Anjanette, I think you pointed it out rightly. The FBI expert that Aiden's referring to was only provided 2 extractions by Mr. Yannetti, Karen Reed's counsel. But what Aiden neglects to mention is that the FBI conducted a separate analysis, this time using Axiom and Celebrite. And the conclusion of that analysis was that the searches were conducted at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. and it was done at the behest of Karen Reed. That was the timestamps, and the Celebrite internal expert himself is a witness for the state who will confirm the timestamp of those searches. So that's to address just a primary falsehood. So that's one reason why I think there's some evidence of Karen Reed's guilt. Going to something else that Mr. Kearney was talking about.
He says that he wants to point out what he thinks that Aiden is lying about, what Turtle Boy is lying about, and then by proving that Turtle Boy is lying means that Karen Reed is guilty. That is very flawed logic. Whether you like Turtle Boy or not, that doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Kearney knows the evidence in this case shows that John O'Keefe's Waze data, does not show him arriving at that house until 12:24. So the 3-second window where Mr. O'Keefe at 12:21 a.m. in his Apple Health data went up and down 3 flights of stairs in 3 seconds is entirely an errant and unrelated piece of information if the Waze data, which it does, confirms that Mr. O'Keefe didn't arrive at 34 Fairview until 12:24 a.m. Furthermore, there's also evidence that Mr. Kearney doesn't even address, and the omission of it is so telling as to Karen Reed's guilt. Mr. Kearney doesn't address the voicemails from Karen Reed right after 12:45 a.m. when she is alleged to have hit John, screaming that she effing hated John, that he was a pervert, and that he was sleeping with other women. And what else does Mr. Kearney not address? That just 1 month before John's death, Karen Reed herself started an affair with a federal agent, I believe Mr. Kearney knew about this affair and covered it up from the public to try to protect Karen Reed in the lead up to this trial. And that federal agent that Miss Reed was cheating on Mr. O'Keefe with on the January 15th, 2022 Patriots game, that agent went over to John's house, and Karen followed that agent down to the basement on his way out and gave him a kiss and said to him, "Federal agent, I know where the cameras are, so I know that this will not be caught on camera when I go to kiss you." And the reason why that's relevant, Anjanette, and this goes to the last thing I want to talk about with regard to Karen Reed's guilt, is that there were 17 Ring videos deleted between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. from John O'Keefe's Ring system, which Karen Reed had control over.
No. See, this is flawed right here, because he's saying that the Ring camera footage was deleted because Karen Reed had access to it from John O'Keefe's home. No, law enforcement, particularly Proctor, had access to it via John's cell phone. But, we'll see what happens when it comes to trial.
According to John O'Keefe's niece. And so that, Anjanette, coupled with the fact that Karen Reed went back to Fairview Road before going to Jen McCabe's, is evidence that she saw the body, had a panic attack, had a meltdown, and then tried to bring witnesses back to the scene, knowing that body was there, which is why Karen Reed started screaming before she got past the tree line coming up to Fairview Road when she went back to the scene with Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts. That's the reality.
So Aiden, Grant threw out a lot of information in there, and a lot of what Grant said is laid out in some prosecution documents, particularly the one that was pushing back against the motion to dismiss filed by the defense. And there really is some information in there in that document that is inculpatory, that makes Karen Reed look bad, and it does point to her as the person who killed John O'Keefe, that maybe backed up and hit him. What do you say about those voicemails where she is calling him and cursing at him after the fact, allegedly after she hit him? What is your response to that?
The Commonwealth would have us believe that Karen Reed, after intentionally striking John O'Keefe with his car, did perhaps the most incriminating thing she could do and leave angry voicemails with him. That is the last thing. To me, that is more exculpatory than inculpatory, because a guilty person would not leave a message saying, "I hate you," immediately after hitting someone. An innocent person was. A person who was upset that they thought their boyfriend went out and got drunk and didn't come home. That kind of person. People have left voicemails like that with their loved ones before when they get upset with them. That does not make them a murderer. That does not explain why John O'Keefe has dog bites on his arm. That does not explain why Lucky Loughran did not see a body at 2:30 a.m. That does not explain why Ryan Nagel did not see John O'Keefe inside or outside of the house. And by the way, the Apple Health data is substantial, and he's wrong about the waist thing. He just made that up. The Apple Health data uses an internal cocoa clock, which
he's wrong about it. He just made it up. So now you can see that, like I'm saying, you can see that there's a little bit of contention between Turtle Boy and many, many people. But is he wrong? Don't know. Now, a lot of the personal things, I think that, his personal legal issues have also been brought to light. And I think that also makes people go, hey, is he a guy you want to listen to? But the thing is his information incorrect? And that's, when it comes to the Karen Reed case, is the most important.
Measures seconds from the year 2000. It is the most reliable form of telling time possible. And it shows that John was ascending and descending stairs from 12:21 to 12:24. It's Apple. It's freaking Apple. We don't have to explain the reliability that our society has on Apple. If Apple Health data is unreliable, then we have nothing. Additionally, not a single person inside that house who left that house, there was 11 in total, said that they saw a body when they left the house. Not a single person saw a body. However, I'll tell you what Lucky Loughran did see when he went back at 3 a.m. was he saw a Ford Edge parked in the exact same spot where John O'Keefe's body would be discovered 3 hours later. Remember, he did not see a body there prior to that. And then he saw a Ford Edge, and then 3 hours later, boom, a body appears there. You know who owns a Ford Edge? Colin Albert owns a Ford Edge. Brian Albert owns a Ford Edge. Kevin Albert owns a Ford Edge. And the police to this day have not done a single thing to track down who was driving a Ford Edge parked directly next to where a dead police officer was found 3 hours later. The same lead investigator, Michael Proctor, who we now know is close family friends with the primary and most important witnesses in this case, that he lied to a state grand jury about his relationship with them, that he was offered gifts by Julie Albert, the mother of Colin Albert, on the day that Karen Reed was arrested. She wanted to thank him and send him that. So I don't care if Karen Reed was smooching with the entire town of Canton. I don't care if Karen Reed left angry voicemails with them. None of that explains all of the much more damning exculpatory evidence that I just went over.
Okay. But Aiden, you have to contend and you have to concede that I don't think anybody is saying that Karen Reed intentionally hit. I don't even think the Commonwealth is saying that she intentionally backed in.
Yes, they are.
I mean, it sounds like they think she was drunk. They got into a fight. This is the theory. She got into a fight with him. They argued. she was drunk. He may have had that glass in his hand or whatever from the bar, and that she backs into him and takes off. And maybe she didn't even realize what she did. And then
you
she's
disagree with the Commonwealth.
cursing him out.
And you disagree with the
That's
Commonwealth.
what that's how I read it.
Anjanette,
That's how I read that document.
Hold on, Anjanette, can I weigh? Anjanette, can I weigh in here? Because I think I deserve a chance to respond.
That John did that John was hit intentionally. It's undeniable. That is what they.
No, that's wrong. Aiden, you're putting out misinformation. This is a malice theory of second-degree murder. I'm sure Anjanette can explain it to you if you don't want me to. The malice theory of second-degree murder has three possible prongs. Two of them involve intentionality. One option does not. One involves reckless.
This is only sped up to 1.25, so it's sped up, but not that much. So yeah, he was nodding really, really fast. His hands are going really, really fast. They're all talking very fast, but it is sped up to 1.25.
As the mens rea, which means a reasonably prudent person knew or should have known that they acted in a way which could have resulted in death. It does not require intent. It does not require foresight of the death having potential to occur. It requires only that the defendant should have knew or should have known that their actions, to wit, in this case, DUIing and backing up in anger while John was around the car, had a reasonable and plain likelihood that could cause death. That's the standard. It's not intentionality. You're wrong.
So according to Grant, the Commonwealth has to prove that Karen Reed backed up angrily. So stupid to me.
I'm actually not wrong, because actually in the filings they specifically said that Karen backed up 62 feet and hit the maximum speed of 24.2 miles an hour. 62 feet at 24 miles an hour, which by the way is physically impossible. We've recreated that several times, particularly in the snow, and yet nobody heard it. That is not an accident if somebody does something like that. If somebody intentionally guns it at another human being, that is not an accident. So let's be clear. The Commonwealth is alleging.
But you understand, Aiden, let me quote this.
The second degree. Let me get in here. I've read the documents. You can intentionally gun your vehicle, but not intend to hit somebody, and that's how I read it. And I read when I read through the documents, and I've read them twice. That this laying out their theory of the case was that they got into a fight. She was drunk. I mean, this was a bad relationship. It sounds like it was on the rocks. It was probably ending, and that she was mad. She may not have even realized she hit him. I mean, that's how I read the documents.
You didn't hit a 200. You wouldn't notice you hit a 217-pound body going 24 miles an hour. You wouldn't notice that. Come on.
If you were drunk, I don't know.
And by the way, both cameras on the street have ring cameras on them. Ask how many of them were pulled by police. 0. There's hundreds of ring cameras on homes and businesses between 34 Fairview Road and 1 Meadows Ave where she went. Not a single one of those videos was pulled by police. Not one. If they had just found one ring camera video with a broken taillight, Karen Reed is 1000% guilty. But they did not do one. And the lead investigator in charge of this happens to be good friends with McAlbert's and was offered a gift by Julie Albert on the day that Karen Reed is arrested. Ask yourself why.
And I've read that in the defense.
He's not wrong. If this was just simple that she backed up and she got mad, backed up into him, what are the chances that any ring camera footage from around the house just happens to be missing? The ring camera footage of her arriving home where you would see her broken taillight happens to be missing. The cameras that would be catching her vehicle on the way home from 34 Fairview to John's house, the footage happens to be missing. I mean, that's fucking weird. This should be, I mean, if I don't know. Okay.
I want to discuss very briefly the dog bites, this dog bite theory, because, we haven't heard that really specifically addressed by the state. So I've seen the pictures. We can't show them on YouTube. I know they're out there on other channels, but we are not showing them. I've seen the scratches. They're vertical up and down. You contend their dog bite marks attacks from Chloe, the dog that was in the house. Aiden, that's your contention. So tell me why you believe so strenuously that John O'Keefe was attacked by a dog, because there's no mention of that in the information from the medical examiner in the prosecution documents.
I suggest everybody watch Attorney Melanie Little's interview with canine expert and dog bite expert Garrett Wing on January 13th. You can check it out on YouTube. He is a person who has seen thousands of dog bites over the years and knows exactly what they look like. And he believes with absolute certainty that those are dog bites from an untrained police dog. Police dogs are taught specifically to latch onto a victim's arm. They will not let go. They're taught to hold on. But an untrained dog like Chloe, who, by the way, also according to Canton Animal Canine Control Records, sent 2 other people to the emergency room and biting them. An untrained dog like Chloe would grasp onto you, and if you pulled your arm away, it would cause marks like that. And it's undoubtedly that those are clearly clearly lacerations, not abrasions. We all know what an abrasion looks like. It's insulting to us to suggest that those are abrasions. And keep in mind, medical examiners don't see dog bites a lot because most people who die are not killed by a pack of wild dogs. So they don't really see a lot of dog bites on dead victims very often.
All right, Grant, this is our last point, the dog bite theory. Your response.
Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry I forgot to address it earlier. This is simply not at issue in the case, Anjanette. The defense has said there's no dog DNA at issue. It's not in any of the moving papers, as you know. What it is actually a microcosm of everything that Aidan Kearney reflects in this case, which is we, as you know, Anjanette, in the legal profession, are subject to the federal rules of evidence, which I keep in my pocket at all times. Those federal rules of evidence limit what can come in a trial for a reason. Mr. Kearney, however, in an attempt to poison the jury pool, can say whatever he wants in the hope that it will potentially cause one juror to hold out and vote for a not guilty verdict. However, because the fact that dog DNA is not an issue, and the fact that these autopsy photos came out from the defense and were hypersaturated, it's all an indication that this is a distraction, and it's not even going to be brought up in the case. And one more thing to bring this back. It is very, very, very clear that Karen Read probably did not intend to kill John O'Keefe. But it is also clear that Karen Read probably found the body before she went to Jen McCabe's and had a complete meltdown as a result. Mr. Kearney can't address Karen's behavior, the breakdown of the relationship, the exceptions to the character evidence rule, and the hearsay rule for a domestic relationship gone bad in the lead up to a second-degree malice murder. He can't address any of the evidence related to Karen's statements after she did hit John. And he can't even address why Karen won't release the ring videos from her parents' house in Dighton that would show that tail like crack in that early morning. She released a still. She won't release the other videos. She's guilty. He knows she's guilty. He worked for her PR team. She burned him, and it's over.
Okay, so we're just making things up. PR team. See, this is the part where we start making things up. But okay, sure thing.
All right, guys.
Anyway, that's just a small little look into Turtle Boy, as this has now been months. This is just one interview. This is months of, you can go back and look at, he's been on Court TV. I mean, he's been on other channels. He's got his own channel. You can go back and go through as much of it as you want in a deep dive, if that's what you choose to do. But he has definitely made the Free Karen Read movement what it is today, whether you like him or not. So, this guy over here, Grant, he just seems that he thinks Karen Read is guilty because he hates Turtle Boy. That's the only thing I can come up with on everything I've watched in my rabbit holes. With that, though, I am going to wrap it up. It's Saturday. I have to go cook dinner still. My family's probably like, where the hell are you? You said you were going to do 2 hours, and now we're at almost 3.5. And but in this case, there's just so much to it. I think I can do things quickly, and you just can't because there's just so much. But starting Monday, opening statements. Like I said, Bob's going to be streaming it. Melanie Little's going to be streaming it. 13th Juror is going to be streaming it. Law and Crime, Court TV. You'll be able to find it in whatever viewing place you prefer. I will not be streaming it. I will be going over highlights throughout the week and talking about certain things that happen. So you can look forward to that next week. But like, this is just going to be, this is going to be so crazy. This is going to be such a crazy trial. Yay for Monday. Yes. Let me think if there's anything else I wanted to cover before we were done. I think we got all of it. I will do some updates on the Prezi. I will put the updated link in my Facebook Criminality Karen Read chat, and I will put the updated one. I will update the one in the description to this video once it's done. So I'll add the links that we talked about adding and a couple adjustments on the timeline. And like I said, it's public. It's for you guys anyway. So I will see you guys on the next one. I know you guys have 1,000 other places that you could be, and yet you choose to stay here and hang out with me. I don't know why, but it's very humbling, and I appreciate each and every one of you, whether you talk in the chat, whether you lurk, whether you just, listen while you're doing housework or cooking dinner. Every one of you, I absolutely appreciate you guys for being here. Make sure you guys hit the like button before you leave, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a good rest of your Saturday and good Sunday.